What's up, nigga?
Alright, you're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another compilation of old content. Hey, well, look at that. But this is the first 12 episodes of Monthly Movie Recap, again, monthly, constituting the first year, even though it's actually like 2 years altogether with all the months and shit I missed in the middle. But I still felt it would be thematically fitting to do the first year of Monthly Movie Recap. So here it is, let's just jump right into it. You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another new series idea. I know I have so fucking many. But this is a movie review type thing, which I'm thinking of calling Monthly Movie Recap. Basically, what it is if I watch a few movies throughout the month, and I've wanted to kind of do reviews on them, but just haven't taken the time to do reviews for each one individually, I can throw one of these out, where I sort of give brief reviews of the movies themselves that I've watched this month. And by this month, I don't necessarily mean August, which is when I'm recording this. But I mean August and July, just because I've actually watched most of these in July. Only two of the movies I'll be talking about today were actually watched in August. But before I get to the movies, I do want to briefly talk about something else I've been listening to, and that is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy original radio series. I've already talked about it a few times recently on the channel, including doing a review of the franchise as a whole. But my friend recently got me this So Long and Thanks for All the Fish t-shirt, obviously in reference to that. For my birthday. And then in addition to that, I also have these peril-sensitive sunglasses, which came with the video game of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that Trevor gave me. So that's pretty cool. But let's move on to the actual movies. So the first movie we're going to talk about, we have The Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Now this movie was super fucking funny. Like, I did not expect it to be as funny as it is. But it's fucking fantastic. So this movie is from the late 70s. I think it's 78 or 79. I can't remember which. And it's a parody of 50s B movies. And so, like, it's very cheesy and stupid on purpose, but it's got a similar sense of humor to things such as Airplane. And in fact, it actually came with a poster, which I will show now. Here we have the poster. I decided to actually put it up on the wall, so here it is up close. But yeah, it's a very fun movie. It has a very similar sense of humor to things like Airplane and Naked Gun. It's fucking great. It has so many good lines in it. They had a scene where there was text going on the screen talking about everything must go, like a sale. But then as it went on, the text eventually started to say stuff like, help, they're getting us, they're killing us, send help now, stuff like that. It was pretty fucking great. And then there was like a couple of random musical numbers for no reason. The movie's not a musical, but it has like 2 musical numbers in it that come out of nowhere and are unexpected. And the way they defeat the tomatoes is using this music, which I think Mars Attacks must have ripped off or maybe paid homage to with the way they defeat the aliens in that. I guess spoilers for both of those, but still. Interesting case this one has. Has like a book, like it has like a little tiny booklet insert thing in it. But then it's just kind of in this plastic thing. Not the best of cases, but it's good enough as for what it is. Apologies for the plastic thing not being visible. Let me show you a closer look at it real quick. This is how the case is. It's just plastic. Like, it's just this big hunk of plastic inside the cardboard. But I really, really enjoyed this movie. I had a blast watching it. Way funnier than I thought it was going to be. Highly recommend. Now on to the next movie, which isn't so much a movie as it is a movie trilogy. And with this movie trilogy, we are talking about the Rampage trilogy by Uwe Boll. Now, Uwe Boll is a controversial director. He's known for doing like a lot of bad video game adaptations. This is not one of them. This is one of his original movies, which he's actually done a considerable amount more of than the video game ones. So I'm surprised that he's known primarily for his video game ones when he's done more originals than not. But this disc here is all 3 movies on this one disc. So with that said, the movies themselves are each different in their own way. Basically, this is just a trilogy about a guy who goes on a killing spree. I hate that the 2 sequels try to give it a message, because the message becomes really preachy and contradictory of itself, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially given the context that his actions don't actually match up with what he's claiming to fight for. So that becomes a little stupid and muddled in the sequels. But the first one is fucking fun. I had a blast watching it, too. It's not a good movie by any stretch. It's absolutely, filled with narrative problems, and There's not really any real motivation established for the character or anything. But the first movie is just a simple killing spree where the guy just kind of goes and he just kills a bunch of people. Again, it's an action movie, it's a crime movie, and they don't really give him any motive, which is what I liked about the first one. It wasn't pretentious. But the second and third movie both tried to give it like a moral and like make the character like an anti-hero. They even describe him on the back of the case as a violent anti-hero. And I'm like, what the fuck? He's not an anti-hero. He's a fucking sociopathic killing machine, right? The only real motivation he gets at all in the first movie is his friends like, oh, there's too many people born every year. And so he's like, okay, population control. But in the second and third movie, they tried to make it something about like global elite and shit like that. And they didn't really flesh it out that much. And like he claims to be going after like the global elite, but then he's like killing just random people, like a bunch of women in a hair salon, or a waitress at a chicken restaurant, or people who work at a TV studio. So it doesn't make any sense, just random normal people. And he says a lot of things that are contradictory, and it shoehorns in some really dumb contemporary political stuff, like him trying to advocate for like gun control because he's only able to do this because there's no gun control, which is patently false, because the guns he uses are absolutely not legal. He has fully automatic two fully auto fucking machine guns that he goes out with, and then he has like explosives and shit, which are just not like common. And they're super powerful explosives too, because they blow up whole fucking buildings and city blocks and shit. They're nuts. There's also a scene where he tries to claim that there's no background checks when you buy a gun, which is absolutely not true. Obviously, wouldve has never tried to buy a gun in the US because there is absolutely background checks when you buy guns. They also make it a point in the third movie to mention he's like one of the 5 best marksmen in the world or something. It's really fucking stupid. And they get progressively less realistic with each one. Because the first one, he's just attacking his own small town. Okay, whatever, I can believe that. Also, his guns never run out of ammo. And then the second one, he takes over a TV station to spread his message. Okay, whatever. The third one literally starts with him taking down a fucking president. And then they're just incompetent to catch him, the authorities are. It makes no sense. Doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. But for dumb action movies, I still got enjoyment out of all 3 of them for one reason or another. I definitely don't think they're good movies or masterpieces or anything like that, but I don't know. I liked them, especially the first one. The first one was good. But the second and third, I still enjoyed, but nowhere near as much as the first. Alright, now on to the third movie. Technically the 5th movie, but the third, movie that I'm talking, is the trilogy, there. But this is The Strangers, which is inspired by true events, apparently. I guess, they're kind of inspired by a series of, home break-ins, as well as, the Sharon Tate murders and stuff. They also bear kind of a resemblance to the Ketty or Kettle cabin murders. I can't remember which it's called. But apparently that wasn't an inspiration, according to the director. But, yeah, it was fine. I really, really liked the suspense in this movie. In, the first couple acts of it. Great stuff. The ending was a little anticlimactic, and it got kind of, I don't know, I felt like the intensity kind of wore off after, towards the end. But it was very fucking intense for the first, 2/3 of the movie. So that made it really fun to watch. I think that was great. The first 2/3 of the movie were great. The ending was alright. Apparently there's a sequel. I don't know if I plan on watching that. But this one was fun. It's a freaky concept, because home invasions are a scary-ass concept when you think about it. Especially when it's a big group of people. And in this movie, they cut off their contact to the outside world by, disabling their phone line and, destroying their cell phones and stuff like that. So very, very atmospheric and creepy build-up, which I really liked, which I think alone makes this movie worth watching. But I think it does kind of peter off a little bit at the end. Alright, now on to the final movie we're talking about today, which is the speedy version of Dragon Ball Z's The Revenge of Cooler. Or The Return of Cooler, excuse me. I always get the fucking title wrong, because the first Cooler movie's called Cooler's Revenge. Doesn't matter, this goes by the Japanese title, Fight 10 Billion Power Warriors, anyway. This is my favorite of the Speedy movies that I've seen so far. I knew it would be, because it has a lot of my favorite quotable Speedy lines, because I've watched clips of it multiple times and memorized them word for word. But, actually watching it for real was fun. I definitely think, the quotable lines are more towards the beginning of the movie for the most part. The more it goes on, if you just want to watch the funny bits, just watch the compilations people do with the Speedy dub, but if you enjoy it as much as I do, it's worth getting one of these VCDs. They're rare. I got this one for like 20 bucks. I've seen it go for 70 and more, so I got lucky on that. But yeah, this contains like the line, if I don't eat rice, the power won't come. At last you show your real shit, Saya people. Poo-poo. And, don't say such a silly thing. Lots of great lines in this movie. This is, my favorite of the Speedy Dub ones that I own. I also own the, Super Android 13 and a few episodes of actual Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, that's my monthly movie recap. Let me know if you guys think this series is a good idea. I know I had to adjust the camera at one point, so maybe the camera angles weren't the best, but I'm wearing fucking cardboard sunglasses when I can't see unless I'm, like, kind of leaned down a little bit, so forgive me on that. But anyway, welcome to episode 2 of Monthly Movie Recap, where I talk about the movies I've watched throughout the month, and haven't really had time to make a video on in and of themselves, and frankly I wouldn't maybe have enough to say just doing a video about those movies. With some of these I probably could have done dedicated videos to, but again, have these for here. So, we'll start with the movies I watched with my friend at his house, my friend that we call Rem on the channel. We do a thing back and forth where I show him movies and he shows me movies. So to start off with, I'll talk about those. So, the movies he's shown me this month are Flight, starring Denzel Washington, which is a movie about a pilot who is an alcoholic, and is struggling with that through most of the movie. That's kind of the theme of the movie. But he is in a plane crash where he does this insane maneuver and saves a bunch of people's lives, making it so that only a few people on the flight actually died, as opposed to everyone fucking dying. Since he was drunk, there was an investigation done into it, so he's dealing with that legal battle, as well as struggling with his alcoholism, when it actually wasn't his fault that the plane crashed. It was a faulty plane. Yeah, and at first he's looked at as a hero as well for saving everyone from the crash, and then he goes through the legal trial and everything, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's a great drama, and it's very good. I mean, Denzel Washington is a fantastic actor, and the plot itself was very, very interesting and tragic and sad. So, very good, very dramatic. Absolutely loved it. Another movie he showed me was The Legend of the Kung Fu Rabbit, which, just one of those Kung Fu Panda knockoffs, with Tom Arnold as his master, and then the guy who played Napoleon Dynamite as Kung Fu Rabbit himself. And then it had fucking Rebecca Black in it. Not a good movie. It was fun to sit and watch and make fun of. It was really fucking stupid, though. That's kind of the reason we watched it. There was a meme whenever I'd go to his house, we'd talk about watching Kung Fu Rabbit, the best movie ever made. And then finally we did. So the meme's over. But it was not good, but it was certainly fun. It was fun to sit and mock the whole time. Another movie he showed me was Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And to watch that, we watched it here. So I actually bought it on Xbox Video because he didn't have any way to watch it, and as far as we knew, it wasn't on any of the apps. I couldn't find it searching. So we just watched it that way. Very good movie. It's where Jake Gyllenhaal plays this, like, shady reporter who just, like, films stuff really up close. But then he starts kind of staging stuff so that things will happen to make it a more interesting story. Very unethical. Very much sociopathic type character. Very interesting role for Jake Gyllenhaal. Very interesting and thrilling movie. I thought it was great. I loved the ending too. I'm not spoiling it, but I loved the ending. And it's a nice change of pace for the kind of ending you would normally get for a movie such as that. But yeah, very good movie. I thought it was great. And we paired that with Cannibal Holocaust, actually, because I showed him Cannibal Holocaust that day. We paired Flight with Training Day and something else, but I can't remember. I think that's all he showed me this month. So now I'll talk about some other movies I've just seen this month, right? So I actually went to the movie theater for the first time in over a year, and we went and saw Clint Eastwood's new movie, Cry Macho. Great movie. I love Clint Eastwood. I wanted to support it because I heard he wasn't doing so well in the box office. Even though it was on HBO Max, I'm like, I'm going to go see it in theaters since it's not doing so well, and it's going up against Shang-Chi, and that's Marvel. And I haven't seen that because, frankly, I have no interest in seeing any more Marvel movies because there's just so goddamn many. And I don't want to support Disney, really. Like, it's just a bunch of reasons I don't want to see those movies. But anyway, that's beside the point. Cry Macho, I really liked it. It's about Clint Eastwood going down to Mexico to bring back his boss's son. A bunch of stuff happens along the way that make it have a lot of issues with that. The mother is very unreasonable and irrational in a lot of ways. and she's involved with some shady people, and there's some shady stuff going on there. It's a very good movie. I wouldn't call it as good as like Gran Torino, but it does channel a lot of the same vibe in a sense. Not in the sense of Clint Eastwood's character. He portrays a completely different character, but it's just old Clint Eastwood kind of has a charm to him. Not to mention the fact that it does have a lot of elements of a Western. Like he's kind of a cowboy, like a retired rodeo guy. There's horses that they break in, and there's stuff like that. So it does kind of go back a lot to some of Clint Eastwood's roots, I feel, with some of his Western roots, so that was really good too. Yeah, I really like that movie. It was good to go to the theater again. Haven't been to a theater in ages. Really pissed me off, though, because my local theater switched to Pepsi, and which means they don't have Mr. Pibb anymore. They also don't have Dr. Pepper. So not having either of those, I had to drink Pepsi. And if you've watched my Red Eye Raw series, you know that cola has this really gross aftertaste to me now. Like, I can't really tolerate it very much. That said, I still drank it. It was fine. But I didn't know that until after I bought the drink. But anyway, side note. Other than that, with my other friend, the one we call Ethan on the shit show he appeared in, we went to his house, and I've seen Anaconda, Anacondas, and then Anaconda 3. We're going to watch Anacondas 4 at some point as well, but Anaconda, really good. I like that movie a lot. It's like a shark movie, but with a snake. But it actually has really good characters and an actually good plot. The second one, in all honesty, the characters are kind of bland. I didn't really like them that much. It was a fine movie, like the plot was interesting enough, but none of the characters really stuck out to me except for the monkey. And then with Anaconda 3, it was fucking terrible, but it was great because of it. Like, we were watching it and mocking it the entire time. And turns out 3 and 4 were Sci-Fi Channel movies, which didn't surprise me, because I even said, this feels like a sci-fi original movie, which I guess it was. So there we go. So 3 was really bad. I haven't seen 4 yet, but we plan to. Again, they both aired on the Sci-Fi Channel, so I expect more of the same. But 3 had David Hasselhoff in it, which, again, another reason we brought up, oh, it feels like sci-fi, because David Hasselhoff plays Finn's dad, Gil Shepard, in the Sharknado franchise, which we've watched together before because those movies are fucking fun as hell, too. Like, they're stupid, but that's what makes them fun as hell. They're also satirical, I think, of shark movies. At least that's kind of the vibe we get from it. But anyway, watching Anaconda 3 had so many questions raised. Originally, we questioned because they say that one of the snakes is pregnant, right? And we're like, don't snakes lay eggs? And so I looked it up because I'm like, wait a minute. I know there's at least one breed of snakes that gives live birth. Turns out it's anacondas. So that actually wasn't a plot hole. They just didn't explain it, which I guess they had some faith in the audience in their movie that had a lot of other issues. Like, they had a .38, right? Like a revolver. And it didn't have a fucking hammer. So it's very clearly a prop gun, and it makes it so obvious. But other than that, there was a few other things that took me out. Like, the CGI was completely unbelievable. And for, like, the snake has this, like, razor tail that can, like, stab people. And at first, we're just like, they're not going to acknowledge this, right? They're just going to act like this is a thing anacondas do. But they do bring it up later, so props to them on that. But yeah, Anaconda, the series, varies in quality, but they're fun snake movies. I think that's all the movies I've seen this month. I could be wrong. If there's any I forgot to include, I guess I'll include them in the next one. And welcome to another episode of Monthly Movie Recap. It's been like, what, 2 or 3 months since I've actually done one? I kind of thought this would happen, but I went with the title anyway, because that's what I decided to do. Because I tried to do it monthly, but since it's been so long, there's a lot of shit I've seen. So plenty of movies to talk about. Well, I wrote down a list of the movies I've seen since the last time, but I don't know what the fuck I did with it. But it's been quite a few movies, so I saw a movie called Whiplash. We'll start with that. Really good movie, great drama. It was from the same director as La La Land, which I actually saw La La Land as well. I don't think I talked about that last time, because I think I saw it after that as well. La La Land I liked, but only after it really started to get some conflict going. Once we got to, like, the second half of the movie, I started to like La La Land a little bit more. And not a lot to say about La La Land itself. It was a musical. It was about following your dreams and focusing on yourself, which I can get behind. It wasn't my favorite, but I did like it from the first bit of conflict onwards. Whiplash, however, from the same director, fucking amazing. It's about a guy who's becoming a drummer, and it's like his dream to become a successful drummer, which to me normally wouldn't be a big draw because I'm not really into music. But it's a great drama, and it's about someone following his dream and persevering. And it's also got some really insightful stuff in it. It has J.K. Simmons in it, who, if you don't know, plays J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies. And he's fucking great in this. He's crazy and strict and over the top and makes people work themselves until they're literally bleeding and crying and a mess on the floor. And he's super harsh. But his mentality behind it is what makes him so interesting of a character. Because his whole mindset is, if he doesn't push people the way he does, then if these people have the potential to be great, then they won't be great if he doesn't push them. He even goes on this big long speech about how the two most dangerous words in the English language are good job. And I can see some truth behind that. I think that you do need to kind of push yourself. But I also do think that there is a limit, and I do think he ultimately goes too far in the movie. But it's a great drama, great characters, and an interesting concept. I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. As I said, I did also enjoy La La Land, but nowhere near as much. The next movie I'm going to talk about is Twisted Pair, which is the most recent Neil Breen movie. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Neil Breen, he is a very incompetent director. All of his movies are considered to be so bad it's good, and a lot of them have very incomprehensible plots. I did a Red Eye Theater on Fateful Findings a few months back with Corbin. That's one of Neil Breen's movies as well. But Fateful Findings actually makes sense compared to Twisted Pair. Like, Fateful Findings did not make sense. There's a bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense in it. But Twisted Pair is a whole other level. The vast majority of the movie consists of Neil Breen badly green screening himself on top of stock footage. And the plot doesn't really make any sense. It just kind of jumps from one thing to another. But my god, was it fun. It was an absolute fun ride. It's easily one of my new favorite So Bad It's Good movies, right up there with Fateful Findings as well. Neil Breen makes Tommy Wiseau seem competent. Tommy Wiseau makes more sense in his movies than Neil Breen does. But Neil Breen also has like a huge ego because his fan base props him up by sarcastically telling him he's a genius, and he doesn't have enough awareness to pick up on the fact that it's sarcastic, which I think is also fantastic and wonderful, which is why I love those movies. It is my goal to one day see every single Neil Breen movie. And in Twisted Pair, he plays two characters, two twins, that both have these superpowers. And again, it's really fucking hard to follow. They start going on about all this technological stuff that's just complete and total nonsense, where they say, like, programmable virtual reality, programmable DNA. But, like, you think those things could make sense, but they say them in ways that don't, and say them as if they're just supposed to mean something on their own. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense the way they try to connect them. It's fucking weird, but I love it. It's so fucking stupid. I've also seen Parasite since the last time I've been on here. The Korean, I don't know if you'd call it a thriller, a drama, I guess it's a little bit of both. It's not really a horror movie. For some reason I was led to believe it was a horror movie before. It's absolutely not. But it's great. It's a movie about this family that's really poor, who, one of them gets a job with this rich family, and the rest of them start getting the other people this rich family hires to have all sorts of things happen where they lose their jobs so that they can get their entire family hired. And they start, like, leeching off the rich family and living in their house. I won't spoil it, but a bunch of crazy shit happens, and the final, like, act of the movie is absolutely batshit crazy, and I love it. Like, it escalates super quickly. I would highly recommend checking Parasite out. I went into it completely blind, which is the way I'd recommend people to do it. I didn't even know as much details as I've given you so far, but it's absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of Korean movies, I've also recently seen Train to Busan, which fucking amazing zombie movie. It's a zombie movie that all takes place within trains and train stations, and there's really good characters. It escalates really quickly. The horror's done really well. It has a great soundtrack. My favorite character, I can never remember any of the characters' names, but we just call him Chad because he's a total fucking Chad. There's literally a scene where he, like, picks up a zombie and rams it into a group of other zombies in order to hold them off. He's fucking cool. I love him. Great movie. I had a great time with it. I think I liked Train to Busan a little bit more than Parasite, but it's very close. They're both very good movies. And now, since it is December, let's get on to some of the Christmas movies I've seen. Obviously, again, these are only movies I haven't seen previously, hence the monthly movie recap. I saw Christmas Mail, which was a So Bad It's Good movie. It was absolutely awful. It gave off serious vibes of those really bad Hallmark Christmas movies. My friend showed it to me. We were doing a bad movie night. That's also when we watched Twisted Pair. And I showed him The Room because he'd never seen that. But Christmas Mail, it's really stupid. I feel like it was the least fun out of the three we watched. But it was the most competent. It was still fun. It was still fun to sit and mock and make fun of. But it's basically about this... It's a really stupid romance where this guy is a mailman who falls in love with this girl who's doing a temporary assignment in the mail office, post office, don't know why I called it the mail office, whatever, in the post office, to answer all the letters to Santa. And then, spoiler, not that anyone gives a shit about Christmas mail, but at the end there's like a twist where it turns out that she's Santa's daughter, which is really fucking stupid. And there's a scene in the movie where they have a sprinkle fight and they throw sprinkles at each other, and the daughter calls spaghetti Miss Sketty because she misses it, so she combines Miss and spaghetti. It's so stupid. One of my favorite scenes, though, is when the daughter tries to hook up the dad with their elderly neighbor, and it's really awkward. That was really funny. There's also a random scene where he walks into like this single support group, which is all women, and they ask him when the last time he had sex was, which comes completely out of nowhere and is a lot more raunchy than the rest of the movie. So that was really funny. And then the other Christmas movies I've seen are Jingle All the Way. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that movie. Crazy movie, over the top, very cheesy and stupid. Arnold Schwarzenegger going around, crazy shit happening, trying to get this doll for his son on Christmas, while his neighbor, played by Phil Hartman, rest in peace, love Phil Hartman, absolute classic guy. Loved him as Lionel Hutz, Troy McClure in The Simpsons, as well as the monorail guy in Marge vs. the Monorail. But he plays this douchey neighbor that's trying to steal Arnold's wife. And like, Jake Lloyd, the kid from Phantom Menace who plays young Anakin, is in it. I didn't know he was in any other movies, so that was an interesting treat. But yeah, it was something else. It escalates and gets really crazy later on as it goes. There's counterfeit toys. There's an insane parade scene involving a jetpack. It's fucking nuts. I absolutely love it. Absolutely crazy movie. And then the last Christmas movie that I have seen that I hadn't seen before is Bad Santa, which I didn't expect a whole lot out of. I expected it to just kind of be one of those edgy 2000s comedies, you know, kind of like the stuff you'd see with like Seth Rogen or Jonah Hill, which, you know, there's good to be had in those, but they're all kind of the same. But this, no, absolutely not. This was an amazing movie. I actually thought Bad Santa was it was hilarious. It had good character development. It actually had some kind of sad moments. It was really interesting. I loved it. It was way better than I expected it to be. Really funny. But it's about this group of criminals who get hired on to do like mall Santa stuff, with one of them being the Santa and the other one being the elf. And like they get involved in the mall, and then on Christmas Eve they rob the mall when they're closing down the store. A really funny movie. I've heard there's a sequel. I've heard the sequel sucks. So I'm probably going to stick away from it. But, like, there's also some stuff where he's taking care of this kid who's got really no one else, and that builds up. I didn't know anything about that when I watched the movie. So I thought it was also an interesting treat. Very good movie. I absolutely loved it. We watched Jingle All the Way and Bad Santa on a movie night me and two of my friends did here, where I showed them It's a Wonderful Life, which they had never seen before, which is my favorite Christmas movie, although it's only a Christmas movie really in the third act, and even then it's only like just that it takes place on Christmas. Like, it is a Christmas movie in that regard, but I've always seen like it does tell the whole life of George Bailey, so I've always felt it's much more than just a Christmas movie. I also rewatched 8 Crazy Nights this year. I watch that every year. I showed it to one of my friends as well who's never seen it. But yeah, I think that's all the new movies that I need to recap for this month, which is actually a couple of months. If there's anything else I forgot, I wrote a list. If I can find the list, I'll double check it, and if there's anything I missed this time, I'll just mention it in the next video and do it there. I might do dedicated reviews to some of this, maybe, I don't know. Monthly movie recap I did start because it is easier to do than full-blown reviews, but I obviously will be doing some full-blown reviews of stuff coming up here in the future. I just need to get some more motivation to do things like that. Like, I'm going to do Naoki Urasawa's Monster. I need to finish that. I'm on, like, episode 33 out of 75. But yeah, that's all the movie recap for today. Alright, time for another monthly movie recap. Again, I'm sorry, these things, they get fucking postponed until finally it's been more than a month. But I'm not that far off this time. It's only been, like, a little over a month, maybe a month and a half. I took some notes just to make sure I don't miss any movies we've watched. I haven't watched as many movies, which is why I've been pushing this one off. But then again, I have more than 4 movies that I'll be talking about here, so I guess that's not entirely true, because there's not always a lot of these, is there? So the first movie I'm going to be talking about today is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Now, this is a movie I bought digitally on Xbox Video. I originally heard of it from the Maniacs YouTube channel, and it's a very interesting movie. It's loosely based on an actual serial killer by the name of Henry Lee Lucas. They changed his name in the movie, although his name is still Henry. And the guy who made the movie said it's more based on the stories he claimed, because Henry Lee Lucas was known for exaggerating and claiming he did a lot of things that he didn't do. So the movie itself is apparently based on those delusional fantasies he came up with about his cases. It stars Michael Rooker, the guy who played Merle in The Walking Dead. That's where I first noticed him. Though Michael Rooker is an actor I do quite like, even though I don't care for the later seasons of The Walking Dead. I did like the first few. But this is a very interesting movie where it follows Henry going around killing people, but also just living a normal life. He's staying with his friend who's in a incestuous relationship with his sister, or at least trying to be. And then Henry catches him raping his sister at one point in the movie, and then stops him with force. But it's a very interesting movie. I quite enjoyed it. It was very dark, and it was very fun to watch. I'm a big fan of true crime and serial killer movies. Obviously, this is a fictionalized account, but it is loosely based on a real person. Very interesting. I quite enjoyed it. Next up, we'll be talking about the 1980 version of Maniac, which is a movie I've been wanting to watch for a while, and, I mentioned the Maniac YouTube channel before. That's actually where he got his name, was from that movie, Maniac. I watched the Elijah Wood version first, and then I went back and watched the other one this time. I would say that the 1980 version is grittier and makes you feel more dirty and smutty. But it's not in first person like the Elijah Wood one is, and you don't hear all his inner thoughts. It's a very more traditional slasher movie, just being a lot more sleazy and grimy. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It had kind of a twist ending, where you get to see kind of why he kills people, or part of why he's so fucked in the head. But in all honesty, I didn't like it as much as the Elijah Wood version. I know that might be a hot take, but I had a lot more fun with the Elijah Wood version, and it was much more, creepy, and, you get inside his head. Whereas with this one, it's just a killer who puts scalps on mannequins, and had, a prostitute for a mother, and that, fucked him up. The Elijah Wood one just felt a lot more, intense, because you're hearing his thoughts, you're seeing it all in first person. And Maniac had a few shots that were in first person, but it's overall it was just more of a traditional slasher movie. But like the other one, it does show, the normal side of the character. So, I mean, there is that, too. But I don't know, I like the Elijah Wood one a little bit better. I know, probably a hot take. The next movie we'll be talking about is The Prestige, which a friend of mine showed me. He's been wanting to show me it for a while. And God, was that a good movie. Holy shit. It's about these two magicians played by Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman trying to one-up each other. And they start doing this trick where they, the transported man trick. There's a couple of twists in the movie, very interesting twists. Nikola Tesla's in the movie, played by David Bowie. But, one of the twists, they dedicate a lot of the movie to making you feel that twist coming, because they hint at it throughout, but you still don't fucking see it coming, because it's obvious, but it's also not obvious. It's a very well-written movie. I quite enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And next up, we'll be talking about Guinea Pig, The Devil's Experiment. This is the first in the Guinea Pig series. If you don't know about Guinea Pig, it's an extreme fake snuff film series. It's extreme, splatter, hardcore cinema type stuff that people watch when they like to watch fucked up movies. And I'm going to be honest, although I liked some of the practical effects that were pretty good, in fact, they were very convincing. I had to close my eyes a couple of times, like when they're clamping her skin with the clamp and like when they put the needle in her eye. That made me squirm, I'm not going to lie. But there's no real substance to it. Like, there's no real plot. It's just these three guys torturing a chick for 43 minutes. It's a very short movie. It's only 43 fucking minutes. But I don't know. Like, it was an interesting watch, I guess, for like how convincing some of the effects were, and I guess that's kind of the point of the Guinea Pig franchise. But I can see why The Devil's Experiment is not one of the more notable ones. I think people typically talk about Flower of Flesh and Blood. I haven't watched that one yet. I'll go back and watch it eventually. Next movie we're going to be talking about is Hachiko Monogatari, which translates roughly to Hachiko's Story, or Tale of Hachiko. Hachiko, if you don't know, was a Japanese Akita dog who was very loyal to its owner. That's what it's known for. That's why the Akita breed is like the breed known for loyalty. But basically, its owner would walk with Hachiko. He would walk down with his owner to the train station every day before he went to work, and then would walk down when he got off work to walk home with him. And he would do this every single day. Well, then his owner died of a heart attack, and Hachiko still went to the train station every day and traveled, like, really far, like 100 miles or some shit. I don't know the full thing, but I know it's far. Because I think he traveled from Asukasa to Shibuya, which I'm pretty sure is a pretty big distance, to get back to his owner's old house. Again, he would just sit and wait at the train station, and he did that for years until he died. And it's really sad. They took inspiration from it when they did the episode of Futurama about Fry's dog doing the same thing. Hachiko is like a really sad story. Like, it's just a good boy waiting for his owner. It's definitely a movie if you're in the mood to watch, like, kind of like a more like heartfelt, dog movie if you like dogs. If not, then it's probably not the movie for you, but I quite enjoyed it. And Hachiko himself is like a national treasure in Japan. He's a very good dog. They also did a US remake called Hachi, starring Richard Gere, and I've seen that one before years ago, but I knew it was based on a true story, but I had never seen the Hachiko version before, and I didn't know all of the details back then. Alright, now the last one isn't actually a movie that I hadn't previously seen, but it's a cut of a movie I hadn't previously seen. And that's the Watchmen Director's Cut. I really liked the Watchmen movie. The TV show's god-awful. The comic's still good. I think the movie is actually a little bit better than the comic, personally. Again, probably another hot take. But Watchmen is a dark, like, subversion of the superhero genre, where, again, I don't really like superheroes, but I love Watchmen. It has a lot of characters who each have their own moral codes, which are all drastically different. Mostly the ones you get to see are Ozymandias and Rorschach. And it's another thing that I brought up in my Death of the Author Red Eye Raw, because the creator says that Rorschach is someone who you're not supposed to sympathize or agree with, but I think Rorschach's great. He's my favorite character, and I think he's way more morally sound than Ozymandias. But it also deals with the whole, needs of the many versus needs of the few argument. And the comic was written back during the Cold War, so it was dealing with a lot of the Cold War and the Red Scare that followed. It's a fascinating comic, but I do think the movie's even better, and the director's cut is definitely better than the theatrical cut. You get to see a few more details here and there, like the old Night Owl's death scene isn't in the theatrical cut. And I think the sex scene is longer, the one when they're on the Archimedes. That was interesting. It was already a pretty long scene. Maybe it's not longer. It's been a minute since I've watched the theatrical cut, I must confess. I do know that the scene with old Night Owl's death wasn't in the theatrical cut, though. So, doing this a little bit different today, boys. Today we're doing my monthly movie recap, and again, monthly movie recap. We're doing it live. I normally record this, trim it down just a little bit. I don't do a ton of editing on these. These are relatively low effort. And then I upload them. It's been a while since I've done one, like 2 or 3 months. I know they're supposed to be monthly, but again, this is no surprise. This has been the case for all the episodes thus far. I watched the Godfather Part 1 tonight, so that's what prompted me to do my monthly movie recap. And I decided to do it live just to mix things up a little. Obviously, we're on the webcam, which I think I've recorded all the monthly movie recaps on, rather than using the nicer camera on my phone. But Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk. I guess we'll start with The Godfather since that's the one I opened with. And I gotta pull up a text document just to make sure I don't miss anything. By the way, the file I saved for this is called Recap April. So I was planning to upload this in April. But yeah. So I watched The Godfather Part 1 tonight, which, great movie. It's one of the classics. It's considered to be one of the greatest gangster movies ever made. Stars Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone. The titular Godfather, I'll make him enough for he can't refuse, that guy. And it also stars Al Pacino as his son, Michael Corleone, who initially doesn't want anything to do with the crime family, but then, as the movie goes on, he evolves from being reluctant into doing that into being a natural-born mafioso and much more ruthless than even his father, considerably so. I look forward to watching 2 and 3. I know 3 is not the most well-received. 2, I think, is considered by most to be, the best one. So we'll see. Yeah, I really like The Godfather. It's a long movie. It's 3 hours long. None of the... it has violence. It is a violent movie, but it's not, violent all the time. There's plenty of scenes that just have character development and world building where they're just talking and doing stuff normally. So it does give you room to breathe between the violence. And one of the most iconic scenes, obviously, is the horse head in the bed. There's a scene on a boat that I thought was going to be in it, but I guess that's going to be in the second movie, probably. So there you go. But yeah, do let me know if you like me doing this monthly movie recap live. I know it's 2 a.m., so nobody's watching this at the moment, so maybe doing it live doesn't matter. Maybe nobody cares. Maybe either way is fine. Maybe I should just stick to doing it the other way. I don't know. But yeah, Godfather Part 1, pretty good. I'm looking forward to seeing the other two. I have a trilogy set that has 1, and then it has a recut, or it has 1, 2, and then a recut of 3 called The Godfather Coda. We'll see how that goes. I'll probably review the trilogy once I finish watching that set. I'd never seen The Godfather before. As it stands, I think comparing Part 1 to Scarface, which also had Al Pacino in it, I think I prefer Scarface, but The Godfather was still really good. We'll see how Part 2 compares. But yeah, that's enough about The Godfather, I think. That was a good starting point. Next, we'll talk about The One. Now, this is a movie that my friend showed me. It is kind of like a Matrix ripoff in some regards, because it has a lot of Matrix-type effects. Came out in the 2000s. I think it was 2000 on the dot, or 2001 or 2 at best. It's super early 2000s. But it has a lot of Matrix, slow motion and cheesy effects, and it very clearly took inspiration from the Matrix. And the soundtrack is the most fucking 2000 soundtrack I've ever heard, because it's got it unironically has Down with the Sickness, Bodies by Drowning Pool, Last Resort, and Blood Brothers by Papa Roach. Was there any others? The point is, the soundtrack is the most 2000s fucking soundtrack I've ever heard, and I love it. Yeah, it was fun. Basically, the plot of that movie was this guy was going to different dimensions to kill all the other versions of himself, because in this multiverse, apparently, if you kill all the other versions of yourself, you basically become God. So that was pretty cool. Very fun, very cheesy and stupid movie. It's not winning, it's not a masterpiece by any stretch, but it was fun, and I quite enjoyed it. So I'm glad my friend showed it to me before it expired on Hulu, because that's something he does, is he'll bookmark stuff on Hulu that he think I might like, and then we'll try to watch it before it expires, because when something is getting close to expiring, that takes priority if it's something we think we would both like. But yeah, that's The One. Now on to Edge of 17, which my other friend, who we call Rem on the channel, showed me, and I fucking hated that movie. So for context, we were doing movie nights, which me and this friend Rem, we do quite a bit, where he'll show me a movie, I'll show him a movie, sometimes I'll show him a TV show, sometimes he'll show me a TV show, sometimes we'll play a video game, etc. You know how we do. But we were doing a romantic comedy night, although the movie Edge of 17 is more of a angsty teen drama, and I fucking hate it, but and I don't like romantic comedies. It's a genre I hate. I'm very cynical about romance, and romantic comedies tend to be cliched and stupid. There are some that I like, and I showed him one of my favorites. It Happened One Night by Frank Capra, starring Clark Gable. I'm a big fan of Clark Gable, and Frank Capra is the director. Classic movie. So that was fun. I showed him that, and then he showed me Edge of 17. Or no, he showed me the Edge of 17 first, I think. And then I showed him that. And I fucking hated it. Yeah, Edge of 17 was absolute trash. It was basically just this whiny teenage girl complaining that, like, the hot guys don't want to be with her. And, like, saying, oh no, feel bad for me because my dad died 4 years ago. And it's like, dude, this character is really whiny and I don't like her. And she's, like, trying to seem cool and not awkward, and then there's this guy that's like, oh no, he's awkward, he's shy, he doesn't know how to talk to girls. And it's like, it's just bad. I fucking hate it. The only thing I liked was Woody Harrelson's character as a teacher, who's this teacher that just doesn't give a shit. I mean, he does give a shit, but he's very sarcastic and shit. He was fun. But the rest of the movie I absolutely despised. Which was the case with the other romantic comedy that Rem showed me in the past, being Friends with Benefits. I'd say Friends with Benefits was actually slightly better, even though I hated it, just because it didn't annoy me the entire time like that. Like, it was cliched and stupid, but, like, Woody Harrelson was also in that one, and he was kind of funny. I laughed more. I think I laughed 14 times at Friends with Benefits. It was considerably less with Edge of 17, and I did not care about the drama, because this girl did not have any real problems, because teenage girls are barely people. But yeah, so yeah, that's that. I also saw some of the Tomy movies, or Tomie, however you say it, the Junji Ito series, right? So we saw Tomy 1, me and Kyler, we watched the Tomy movies, because he has the movies, and then I have the TV series, Tomy Another Face. So we've watched Tomy, Tomy Replay, Tomy Rebirth, and then Tomy Another Face, which again is a 3-episode TV miniseries that basically is just another movie, but with 3 separate little stories. And if you don't know about that story, it's his longest-running manga. It's about a girl who can't die. So that's, like, the big plot, and she, like, drives people to want to kill her, and then, like, she replicates from, like, all the parts of her that get cut up and stuff. Very cool series. It's Junji Ito. The movies, they're pretty fun. They're maybe not... They're nowhere near as good as the manga. Some of the movies are definitely better than others. Some of them are kind of slow and don't have Tomy in it a lot. Other ones are actually a lot better paced at that. So it is kind of a mixed bag. There's still a couple other Tomy movies I need to see that Kyler has. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, those are the movies I have seen for this monthly movie recap. And I did this one as a live stream, which means it's not edited, so you got all my breaths and scratches and burps and stuff in, so that's fun. Because again, normally I edit this down at least a little bit, but since I went live, didn't do that today. And now that I've looked at that text document and actually done it, I can go ahead and delete it. And hopefully we'll watch some more movies. So I'll have more to say next month. I plan on watching Godfather 2 next week, I think. Next weekend. I also got that Clark Gable set finally. I also still haven't watched any of the movies I got for Christmas. So, yeah, very short stream, like 10 minutes. But hey, thought it'd be fun to do a monthly movie recap live. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't fun. But we'll see. I mean, being live didn't mean anything right now because it's fucking 2 a.m. and nobody watched. But there... You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another monthly movie recap. It's been a minute, hasn't it? But here it is, finally, another movie recap. So what movies have I seen recently? Well, there's obviously Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Universe. I just recorded my review of the new series of Beavis and Butt-Head, including Do the Universe. I thought I already talked about Do the Universe in a movie recap, but I guess I fucking didn't, so here we go. Great movie. It's what Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling should have been, because it's Beavis and Butt-Head exploring the modern world and interacting with it the way you'd expect Beavis and Butt-Head to do so. It's very fun. It confirms that Beavis and Butt-Head are in Texas. It confirms that Beavis is his last name. It introduces us to alternate universes. It skips them forward to our time. It's a fun sci-fi adventure, and it's a great Beavis and Butt-Head movie, and the series that followed up is great, but you'll hear more about that in my other video, which, I don't know which of these is going up first. Probably this, because it's simpler to make this. But anyway, Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Universe was fucking amazing. I loved every second of it. Another movie I saw, very different movie, was Harakiri. It's a 1960s samurai movie about a guy going to commit harakiri in the lot of another samurai clan. As it turns out, he's actually related to someone else who did a very similar thing in a way to try and make money. Turns out he's going to get revenge because those people made his relative commit harakiri with a wooden blade, which was really brutal, by the way, because those things are not sharp. Or no, it was a bamboo blade, but whatever, similar substance, you know what I mean. And it was fucking awful, and they wouldn't let him go home to even tell his family about it. But he was doing it because his family needed money. And so this guy was his father-in-law, actually. And then he goes back and he gets revenge. It's a really good samurai movie, tons of great storytelling. I honestly didn't see that twist coming. Very good movie, I absolutely loved it. Classic. I'm glad my friend Rem showed it to me. So, you know, with Rem, he shows me some great movies and he shows me some shit movies. He'll show me Good Will Hunting, he'll show me some garbage like Edge of 17. He'll show me, well, Harakiri and A Silent Voice, which were great as well. And then he'll show me some garbage like Friends with Benefits. He's a very mixed bag of a friend to have when it comes to movie recommendations. I've also recently rewatched Lake Placid, which I had seen before, so I normally wouldn't include something like that in the monthly movie recap, but I remembered fuck all about it. It was a fun enough crocodile movie that is kind of like a shark movie, but with a big crocodile. It was fun, but it wasn't like super substantive. Then I watched Lake Placid 2, which was absolute fucking garbage. We also watched it on Crackle. It was a low-budget, made-for-TV Sci-Fi Channel movie, and it was just as bad as fucking Anacondas 3 and 4. Absolutely hated it. I think have I mentioned that I saw Anacondas 3 and 4? I can't remember if that was before the monthly movie recap, but those were really bad too. But the CGI was really bad in Lake Placid 2. The practical effects were great in Lake Placid 1, and the CGI blended in fine too. But Lake Placid 2 was so bad. Like, so many of the characters were just knockoffs of characters in the first one, but none of them were likable. Like, at least the first movie had a couple of characters that were fun and enjoyable. Lake Placid 2 was just dull. Other than that, I also watched Final Destination 2, which I think I've also seen before, but again, I remembered very little of it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I also rewatched Aliens recently. I've seen Aliens before, but again, it's been a while, and I still stand by when I say I prefer Alien over Aliens. But yeah, I've seen these movies, you know, through various times throughout the year. I also saw Boogie, but I did a full review of that on the channel. But that's a fun movie based off an Argentinian comic, which I actually do have a copy of the 4th volume. Yeah, as you can see, here's Boogie Volume 4. It's in Spanish, so I can't actually understand the words, although my Spanish is better than my Japanese, so there's that. I actually know a decent amount of Spanish, I just can't read it, and I can't speak it, but I can understand certain sentences and stuff, and I can take an order in Spanish, for instance, at a restaurant. But anyway, that's a tangent. I guess another movie I've seen, because I guess I haven't done one of these since my Colorado trip, I don't think. Yeah, no, I haven't. So I've seen The Outlaw Josie Wales, which is a great Clint Eastwood movie that takes place in right after the Civil War, where the North is trying to take out some of the South that won't surrender. Clint Eastwood is one of the guys on the South, and he goes and gets revenge for people who betrayed his group. Very good movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Clint Eastwood is great. As you guys know, I am a fan of Clint Eastwood, so I enjoyed that quite a bit. But that does it for this monthly movie recap. Like I said, I think it's been like 3 or 4 months. I think the last one was back in May, so it would be like 3 months. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a minute. I've been trying to keep these up. I just haven't watched that many movies, to be perfectly honest. Like, what I've been doing is, like, rewatching shit or, like, streaming. Like, I spend a lot of my day at work. And then other than that, I've been streaming. I've also been, you know, playing games and stuff with my friends off the stream as well, and hanging out with my friends. But we haven't watched a ton of movies. I've watched some shows. Not a lot of new ones other than, like, Beavis and Butthead. And I think that's the only current one I've watched. I might watch House of the Dragon at some point. I've heard that that's okay. We'll see. But other than that, I haven't watched a ton of movies lately, so that's why there's been a gap. I mean, usually, like, the other ones has only been like 4 movies, so I don't know why I put this one off so long, but there you go, there's a monthly movie recap. Finally another fucking monthly movie recap, right? 6 months! This is monthly. 6 fucking months. How's that? So, for this one, I had to really think to remember all the movies I've seen since last time, and which ones were included in the last one. So, we'll start with Soviet Treasure Island, which I did a red-eye theater on. but then it got blocked everywhere except for Canada, I think, and the UK maybe. It's blocked in the US, I know that much, for copyright. But I'm doing a re-edit of it at some point, in theory, just like I am with the Young Frankenstein one, right? Yeah, it's an old, I think Soviet Ukraine was where it was made in, was it like the 70s or something? Hold on. When did this come out? It might have been 80s, like 88 or something. 88, yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty fun adaptation of Treasure Island. Had a really cool Long John Silver, and it's where that meme comes from, you know, with Dr. Livesey with the walk. But yeah, overall, I like that movie. It was a fun animated movie. It had some interesting live-action segments, too. And it was very clearly made to be, like, anti-smoking and anti-alcohol as well. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Another one I saw since last time was Sleepaway Camp, which is an older slasher movie, where the twist at the end is that the girl that's been going around killing everyone, and it's the girl that's supposedly doing it, is actually a boy who was raised by her insane aunt, or his insane aunt, to think that he was a chick. Which, you know, it's kind of telling of shit now. I think it's actually fairly accurate to kind of what happens to people nowadays. But it fucked him up and made him into a killer. And then in the sequels, I guess they throw that out the window, but I haven't seen any of the sequels, nor do I really care to, per se. But, like, it's a big twist. It's like it's iconic. It's one of the most iconic slasher movie twists. It's a fairly standard slasher movie, as far as the way it plays out, but it is set apart by that twist ending, obviously. Then, saw Final Destinations 3 and 4. 3 was really fun. I had a lot of fun with it. Definitely not as good as 1 or 2 or 5. But still really fun, and I like the roller coaster setup. Even though it was a little ridiculous with some of the stuff. But then again, it's Final Destination. They're always fucking ridiculous. But yeah, it was fun. 4, I definitely think, was the lowest point of the franchise, having seen them all now. I still enjoyed it, but it definitely was the lowest point of the franchise. And I'd elaborate more, but it's been months since I've seen them both, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of the Final Destination movies kind of blend together in my head. I know in 4... the event was like a NASCAR crash, and that there's a character in it that they say his name on the news report talking about his death, but he's not credited under that name in the credits. They just call him racist, because that's isn't his one character trait. Let's see. I saw Spider-Man No Way Home. Actually, really fun movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Still not my favorite Spider-Man movie, but it's definitely the best of the MCU ones, for sure, having never seen either of the other 2 MCU ones, mind you, because I had no interest in them. But that one was fun. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit, and they did the old characters coming back in a pretty good way. I thought it was just going to be bullshit nostalgia bait, and, you know, it was nostalgia bait for sure. But it was effective, and I think that they utilized them pretty well without making it too pandery, I think. And I think most people would agree. It's a pretty popular movie. It had villains from, you know, all 3 Spider-Man movie universes. Well, the 3 main ones. There's a bunch of other little ones, like the 94 Spider-Man thing, which I don't think was theatrical, but I just know it exists. I don't know. And then there was also, you know, cartoon movies and stuff. Yeah, other than that, I saw Pain and Gain, which we did on Red Eye Theater after the first episode of Malcolm in the Middle, which it was originally just going to be Malcolm in the Middle Part 1 and then Pain and Gain. We were going to do like 3 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, but Vintage had to go because it was late at night, and he's a normal person with a normal schedule, unlike me, who is recording this a little after 5 a.m. So actually, almost 5:30. It's 5:25. Jesus Christ. It's the kind of guy I am. Yeah, Pain and Gain. It's based on an actual, like, I don't know if you'd call it a heist, but robbery. I guess it's kind of a heist. They kidnapped a guy and forced him to sign a paper, and then got a notary to forge it, steal his money. I guess it's a pretty well-known case in Florida. Obviously, I'm not from Florida, so I'm not as familiar with it. It's still a fun movie. A lot of people would say it has a bad taste because it does play it up for laughs, and 2 people did die. which I could see as a criticism, but I also think that people kind of pick and choose that because there's lots of movies that are based on real deaths. I mean, this one is an adaptation of it, but I mean, I'm no stranger to that. I definitely think that it is in bad taste, but I enjoyed it. It was a Michael Bay movie, so I know that those are not typically too popular, but I'd say out of Michael Bay's movies, it was definitely one of the better ones. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It had The Rock in it, which, I mean, don't really care for a lot of his takes politically or some of the stuff he says, but like him as an actor. Well, do I like him as an actor? I liked him in WWF. I liked him as, The Rock. And I like the Doom movie, even though it's a bad movie, it's fun, and I like him in that. So I wouldn't call The Rock a good actor. I mean, he's not a bad actor, he's fine. But I enjoyed him in that movie. I liked him in that one. Other than that, the last movie I guess I'm going to talk about here today is Groundhog Day, which I think is, out of these movies, my favorite one I'm talking about. Groundhog Day was really cool, really fun. Takes you through a whole range of emotions throughout the movie. It's also the most recent one out of these that I've seen, because I watched it, I think, 2 nights ago? Yeah, Saturday night. And in it, Bill Murray plays this bitter asshole who I instantly loved the character because he's a bitter, sarcastic asshole, which is a great character trope. I love it, especially when done well, and it was done well, I think. And he gets stuck in a time loop. After his first couple of resets, he starts just doing whatever the fuck he wants because no consequences. Because, time loop, wakes up, it's the same day over and over and over again. And then he starts using it to get with women by finding out information about them in one loop and then looping back and using that to get with them. Then he tries killing himself a bunch of times to try and end it. And ultimately, the way he gets out of it is he starts helping everybody out. And, the day he does all the good for everybody is when it ends. And he also gets the girl at the end. So, overall, very fun movie. Takes you through a whole range of emotions. Interestingly, when my friend showed it to me, he said he wasn't a big Bill Murray guy, but he liked it. And then Steven said the same thing in the Discord. So I'm like, what the fuck do these guys have against Bill Murray? Bill Murray's great. I love Bill Murray. Like, I'm not, crazy about him, but he's cool. I like him. But yeah, I sorry it took me 6 months to do a movie recap. Again, it has been become increasingly clear that monthly is simply a title that I am keeping simply because that's what I started the series as. But yeah, I think that's all the ones I watched in between. Like I said, I haven't really been watching a ton of movies, and I like to have a few of these for these, especially since these are very brief recaps since I'm not dedicating a whole review to them. And sometimes they might be too brief, but, I try. But, since these aren't scripted, they're unedited, and a lot of the times it's been weeks, and in this case months, since I've seen some of these movies. I will also say I watched American Psycho again. I had seen it before, but it has become one of my favorite movies. I've seen it 3 times within the last 2 months. Really good movie. I love American Psycho. Let's see, what else? I also rewatched Godfather 1. Again, awesome movie. Love Godfather 1 and 2. Both of them are great. I'm also going to rewatch Godfather 2 soon in the future because I want to show it to that same friend who showed me Groundhog Day, my friend Rem. He's been on the channel before in a couple of different videos. But we did do we did a movie night, right, where I showed him Godfather 1 and he showed me Groundhog Day. But other than that, yeah, I will try. I will fucking try to be more with it with this. It's just, I haven't been watching a ton of movies. I've been rewatching Family Guy again. I rewatched Breaking Bad for the 8th time. And I've been, streaming a lot recently, so that's also been part of it. And I've got videos I have so much shit I need to edit and upload, and I have so many streams that I need to re-edit and re-upload, because there's tons of my playthroughs that have gaps on the channel currently, and I apologize for that. It's just been the way it is. I think this is the first movie recap I've done on the phone, so it's probably the highest quality episode, because all the others have been on the webcam. I was going to do this one on the webcam, but the disk space on my computer is running low, so I need to do another disk cleanup, which I don't want to do, though, because then it has to load in all the files on the things I'm currently editing. So that's, I've got room to save the files. It's just when you're editing, it uses up disk space, and it uses disk space to remember it, so it doesn't have to load the shit every time you launch your editing software. But anyway, I'm rambling, as I tend to do with these movie recaps. I started watching the show Primeval. Not a movie, but a show. I think we watched the first episode. And that's what, led to the Crackle shitpost, because I was watching it on Crackle with my friend Spencer. And it's been pretty fun. Like what I mean is the Burger King commercial. That Burger King commercial played at least twice in most of the commercial breaks. Primeval's been interesting, but I mean, I've only seen one episode, so it's really hard to judge completely on it. The CGI definitely hasn't aged the best, but the show's been interesting enough. I'm gonna try, because I got a couple movies from Danny this Christmas that I want to try and watch here in the next little bit. There's Meet the Feebles and Wizards, Ralph Bakshi's Wizards. I also still need to watch The Lighthouse and Psycho Gorman, which he gave me, I think, last year or the year before. Different Christmases blend together a little bit in my head. I guess I do have recorded proof if it was last year, because, I have done the What I Got for Christmas stuff. But I definitely have some things I need to get on. I've also, I've got more movies, obviously. I've got a DVD collection update that I've recorded most of. There's a couple more things I want to record for it that are here now. And I might record some stuff that is on its way, with the screenshots like I've done in the past, as well as a digital movie update with American Psycho. Even though I showed the Blu-ray in a previous collection, I don't know if there's a point to it. But I mean, it'll pad it out for time, right? Which is what I'm doing here, so maybe I'll stop and end the video. How's that? Welcome to another monthly movie recap. I know. It's not monthly. I know. But I've seen a good chunk of movies since the last one. I don't even remember when the fuck the last one was. But I'll start with the movies I've seen. In no particular order. I saw Brain Scan. I literally just saw it like a few seconds before starting, a few minutes before starting this video. Brain Scan. It's a really interesting premise. I thought that the premise to Brain Scan was really good. It's a 1994 movie about this video game that takes you in, and then you kill someone, and then it turns out you actually killed them, but then this, weird entity called the Trickster comes out of it. But my problem with it, I liked the movie. I overall liked the movie. I enjoyed my time with it. It was a fun watch. My problem is I don't think they really did with the premise what I kind of wanted. Because it was entertaining, and the ending was pretty entertaining. But the issue I have is the first kill the kid gets, he then immediately finds out that it's real. But then, he still has to use the discs to do the kills? Because first off, he doesn't want to do it anymore, but Trickster tells him, oh, you got it, there's a witness and all this stuff. But it's like Trickster's there telling him this shit. Why is Trickster making him use the discs to do the kills? Because, the discs, I thought that it was maybe putting his brain into a different body, right? And, taking over someone. And that way there would be no evidence. No, it's not even fucking close to that. Granted, with the ending, made it a little bit better, I think, because of the way it ended. I'm like, okay, I get it now, kinda. But I don't get the discs. I don't get why the discs were necessary for the illusion in it. But anyway, with that, I think the way I would change Brain Scan, I would keep the premise very similar, but I would have it actually transplant your brain into someone else, like it put your consciousness into someone else. You're possessing someone and doing the killing. And then that way, you don't realize it's real, and there's no evidence to you, and then you start to realize it, and it starts to get at you. Maybe something like that, right? I think that would be a lot more interesting. But overall, I thought the movie was really good. The kid had a really cool room, and it was super fucking 90s. He had this weird, phone thing that he talked into and told him to call the number, and it had Igor on it. But yeah, that's the first movie we talked about today. It's the latest one I've seen. Next, we'll talk about The Banshees of Inisherin, which is a movie that my friend Theron, also known as Rem, showed me. Really good movie. I went into it knowing literally nothing, and it had one of the most interesting premises I've ever fucking seen. Because it's this Irish movie that takes place on this fictional Irish island. It was actually filmed on multiple little islands near Ireland. But it takes place during the 20s, during the Irish Civil War, when it split off from the UK. Or not when it split and part of it went to the UK, you know what I mean. But with Banshees of Inisherin, the whole premise of the movie is these two longtime friends have a falling out because one of them is just bored of the others. He tells him, I don't like you anymore, you're too dull. Because he wants to, like, write music and do something productive, and he doesn't want to waste all his time chatting with his longtime friend. I didn't realize that would be the entire premise of the movie. But that's what makes it so great, because it escalates and escalates and escalates. Spoiler. I won't spoil the whole thing, but I'll spoil this. The friend, Colm, the one who wants to end the friendship, keeps getting harassed by the other one, I think his name's Podrick, trying to get him to be friends with him again. And eventually he's like, alright, every time you talk to me, I'm going to cut a finger off my hand, and I'm going to give that to you. Until either you leave me alone or I run out of fingers. And the fucking mad lad starts doing it. He just fucking chucks fingers at his door. It's a very unique movie. I very much enjoyed it. Very different movie. Next movie I guess I'll talk about will be... we'll talk briefly about There Will Be Blood. However, I actually plan on doing a full review dedicated to that movie. There Will Be Blood is a great movie. It's about a guy named Daniel Plainview, who's an oil tycoon, hardcore objectivist, narcissist, and I love him. He's such a good character. Basically, he's going to this town, trying to build up his oil company and drill, trying to kind of do shady things to give people not as much money for their land as maybe it's worth, like, you know, maybe exaggerating his purposes, lying, playing on people, stuff like that. And then there's a church that's run there that's kind of culty and weird. But Daniel Plainview is a pretty fucking good character. Like I said, full review of that one will be coming. Next up, we got Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2. These are both modern slashers. In fact, the last one I think came out like last year or the year before, something like. It's really recent. But Terrifier 1 and 2, they feel like old slashers. I enjoyed the hell out of my time. They are super fucking gory, especially Terrifier 2. It's about a clown named Art the Clown, who's kind of a mime. They call him a mime-type clown when you read about it on the Wikipedia page. But he's going around killing people. You don't really know a whole lot about him. There is some supernatural stuff at the very end of the first movie, leading into the second movie, and then in the second movie there's some supernatural stuff. But the first movie, otherwise, is fairly grounded. Like, I mean, there's some stuff where people survive shit that is like, how the hell are they still alive? But other than that, the first one was more grounded than the second. I think I actually prefer the second Terrifier movie, though, because it's more gory, it's more fun. It's so much funnier. Like, there's this sort of weird sadistic humor to it in the second one, where Art is just a fucking goofball while he's just fucking brutally ripping people apart in the most gory, horrific fucking ways. So I really like those movies. Those were really fun. We did those on Red Eye Theater on Rumble. We also did The Stepfather, 1 and 2 so far. We're still going to watch 3. I like those movies a lot. It's a very interesting premise for a slasher film. It's a guy who just wants the perfect family, and he just assumes a fake identity, finds a wife with kids, right? Finds a mother with kids, who's a single mom, and then works his way in there. But he doesn't want to wait around. He just wants to do dad stuff right out the gate. But, like, sex is like a chore for him. He doesn't give a shit about the sex. He doesn't want to have sex with the wife. That's a chore. That's just running the motions. He just wants the family life and to do dad stuff. But he doesn't want to wait and earn it. He just wants to go right to that. And if his family is not absolutely perfect, he fucking kills them and moves on to the next one. Those movies are really fun. I think that's a great premise for a slasher movie. I love it. Let's see, what other movies have I seen recently? I've seen quite a few, because it's been a while. Let me check how long it's been. So, just looked into it. It has been 6 fucking months since the last monthly recap. But another movie we've watched was Poughkeepsie Tapes. We watched that on Red Eye Theater, too. Very, very, very interesting and enjoyable indie, low-budget horror movie about a serial killer. And it's a found footage film. That's a pretty good one. There's not much else to say about it other than you see the unique thing of a victim that he gets who ends up being brainwashed and falling in love with him, and then that's a whole big thing. That's actually a pretty big spoiler, but anyway, Poughkeepsie Tapes was an interesting one. I quite enjoyed it. Another set of movies we've seen is the Creepshow trilogy, as well as Tales from the Dark Side, although I have seen Tales from the Dark Side before. I largely forgot most of the first two segments, because the third segment, Lover's Vow, is easily my favorite of the three. But with the Creepshow movies, I've quite enjoyed those. They're anthology movies that are an homage to the comics of, Tales from the Crypt and the Vault of Horror. And the Creeper is different in each of the movies, actually. He doesn't talk at all, like, out loud in the first movie. He has dialogue, but it's only in the comic panels that it shows. He has actual dialogue in the second movie. In the first movie, he kind of resembles the Crypt Keeper as it would be from the TV show, which I find interesting because I don't think that was out yet. But in the second movie, he looks more like the Crypt Keeper as he appeared in the comics. So that's an interesting dynamic. The third movie, he's barely even in it. He's a little weird animated hooded figure. And there are animated, like, wraparounds in all of them. But the third movie really kind of gets rid of the wraparounds to an extent. The first movie, I think, was really good. I think it's probably the best. It has Leslie Nielsen as a villain in it, so that was kind of interesting. The third movie is the most fun, though. I fucking love Creepshow 3. Because all the segments are good. It's definitely a different vibe than the first two. Like, it's much more modern, because it came out in 2006, whereas the other two came out in, like, the 80s. But Creepshow 3 also has characters, has this doctor character, who's like my favorite character in the whole series, because he's a just total self-centered asshole, who's apathetic towards everyone else, and is just a total dick. Like, this little girl gets cancer, and he has, like, no tact when he tells her about it. Like, she's in, like, middle school or high school. No, I think she's a junior in high school. And he just straight up tells her she has cancer with no tact. And then, the family's like, well, what do we do? And he's like, well, has she been to her senior prom? And they're like, no, she's a junior. And he's like, well, you might want to get on that. Like, he's a total dick, and he just takes a bunch of pills and drinks a bunch of alcohol, and he, like, drops this hot dog on the ground, and it gets covered in, like, dirt and rocks and shit, and this homeless guy, and he gives it to this homeless guy, and the homeless guy eats it and, like, chokes to death, and then, like, starts haunting him. But the interesting thing with Creepshow 3 is the segments are all connected. Like, it's all one narrative, sort of. Well, multiple narratives that are coexisting at the same time. Whereas the first two movies were just straight-up anthologies. I liked all of the segments in the first movie. I liked all of the segments in the third movie. However, Creepshow 2, the first segment, was a little lackluster. The ending of it was a little bit better than the beginning of it, but honestly, I think it was the weakest of the bunch. But the Creepshow movies were really fun. I quite enjoyed them. Let's see. Other than the Creepshow movies, I have also seen... Is that all of them? That might be all of them. I'm scrolling. Oh, Jew on the Grudge! I saw Jew on the Grudge. That's the original Japanese version of The Grudge, if you don't know. It was much better than the American version. Still had a lot of the same plot points, but one key distinction is that it actually had multiple points of view, rather than all just being one girl being affected by it, so I think that added to it considerably. Other than that, we watched Freddy Got Fingered, which is one of Corbin's favorite comedies. A lot of people don't like that movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I didn't like it probably as much as Corbin did. It's a fucking retarded-ass movie, but it's fun. That's why you watch it. It's one of the stupidest comedies I've ever seen. And it's very clearly intentionally so. It's Tom Green. What do you expect? Other than that, I have seen... Is that all of them? Let's see. Like I said, it's been a fat minute, so I'm just checking back through all the previous Red Eye Theaters. Obviously, I've rewatched a bunch of stuff, because, that's me, that's what I do. That's all the ones I can think of right now. Let me pause the recording again for just a second. Alright, I just remembered another one. I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I did not care for it. I thought it had some elements I liked, but overall, I did not like it. But that's all the ones I can think of that I've seen. I bought No Holds Barred, so I plan on watching... Oh, you know what? I watched Pokemon, the movie 3 again. Which I have seen before as a kid a long time ago. I forgot many of the details of it. I remembered the little girl, I remembered Entei, but I didn't remember a lot of the other stuff. And I remembered the unknown, but I didn't remember the actual substance other than that. But I really like that movie. I like the Pokemon movies. I've been on a Pokemon binge here and there. I've been binging little things here and there. Welcome to another monthly movie recap. Yes, a real fucking monthly movie recap, so suck it. But this time, we're gonna talk about the I look like the fucking Undertaker with this blue light. Anyway, but the movies we'll be talking about today, we'll start with Hollow Man. Now, Hollow Man is an adaptation of H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man, and it was starring Kevin Bacon, and honestly, really good movie. I thought it was great. Like, it does the stuff with The Invisible Man that a lot of movies are far too cowardly to pull off, because, like, he gets voyeuristic, he watches his neighbor, he eventually goes in and he fucking rapes her. Like, that, he legit does that. Which, you always have that in the back of your mind when you think about, like, what kind of shenanigans could happen with, like, invisibility. And Hollow Man didn't shy away from it. They just straight up had it happen. It was a really good movie, though. Very interesting take on the Invisible Man. It was sort of this weird, like, science thing that he was doing for the government. They tested it on animals first, and then he did it on himself as the human test. He also, like, ends up killing a bunch of people by the end of it. I won't spoil the exact ending of what happens, but yeah, it's a really good take on the Invisible Man. I quite enjoyed it. Next up, we will be talking about Dagon, which is a adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's Shadow over Innsmouth, which, if you guys know me, you know that's like my favorite. That is my favorite H.P. Lovecraft story. Dagon is a pretty damn good adaptation of that. It's a B movie from the 2000s. I did not expect the special effects to be good because I knew it had CGI, but honestly, there was way less of the CGI than I thought there would be. And overall, the effects were not, like, the CGI itself actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Plus, there was actually a decent amount of practical effects. It takes place, I think, in, like, Spain, because it was made in Spain. But it had all the main story beats, so it was a really good adaptation of The Shadow over Innsmouth. So I quite enjoyed that as well. The next one we'll talk about will be Cannibal Ferox, or Ferox. Cannibal Ferox, it basically felt like it was just trying to replicate what Cannibal Holocaust did. It actually came out a year after Cannibal Holocaust, so, like, when Cannibal Holocaust kind of re-kicked off the cannibal phase in Italy. Cannibal Ferox, it doesn't execute it as well as Cannibal Holocaust. The characters are more fucked up, arguably. But yeah, there's a group of Westerners go down to this Amazon area and do bad stuff to these tribes there, and then get fucked up because of it. Now, granted, there is a key difference, and this isn't a film crew going to do it. These are just, like, explorers, and the biggest piece of shit is this guy who went there on his own, and then the group that goes to find him get wrapped up in it, and he just keeps doing his thing and gets them fucking killed, too. It's like I said, it's like Cannibal Holocaust. It has real animal death, similar to Cannibal Holocaust. Like I said, it basically just feels like a knockoff of Cannibal Holocaust. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. But Cannibal Holocaust is definitely the better movie of the two. Next up, we'll talk about Hideous, which is technically a movie I saw as a kid, and I was super nostalgic for it for a while, trying to figure out what it was. Because I remembered the weird, like, fucking, like, unborn baby monsters that they fished out of the sewer. Like these weird, like, deformed embryos. I remembered that, right? I didn't remember how fucking boring the vast majority of that movie is, besides that. Like, the fucking baby monsters don't actually start killing people until, like, the last, like, 20 minutes of the movie. And even then, it's because they get, like, scared. It's weird. It's so bad it's good in some regards. There are some scenes that are really funny. Like, there's a scene where this chick robs this guy topless with a gorilla mask. That's kind of funny. some of the other premises in it are kind of funny. Like it's fun at times, but it can be pretty fucking boring. It takes place in this weird like castle, which they installed this like high-tech security system in to keep them all trapped in. But yeah, it's about these like weird rich collectors that collect like deformed embryos. It's really weird as a concept. It's a full moon movie, which I guess technically it's the first full moon movie I saw, because I saw it as a kid. I remembered fuck all about it, which is why I'm including it here. But obviously I've seen other full moon movies since then, like Troll 2. Well, Troll 2 isn't technically full moon. What was the other one? Killjoy. Killjoy, that was the one I was thinking of. But yeah, not a whole lot to say about Hideous. It's fucking weird. And not a whole lot happens for a lot of it. A lot of the movie is just them talking. The next movie we will talk about is Tag, which is a 2015 Japanese movie. It's an interesting one. So Tag, it's really fun for a lot of the movie. The themes and stuff they were trying to go for, I think they kind of fail spectacularly in the best way possible. Because it's supposed to be a commentary on, like, video games and, like, the sexualization and objectification of women as, like, things to, like, kill and, like, fuck, like... Because, like, it's, over-violence against women in video games and, like, sexualization of women in video games. But the movie does those things, and it does them, like, a lot. So it doesn't really accomplish what it's trying. If anything, it just makes a fun sort of exploitation sort of movie that sort of has a shoehorned in message that they do a piss poor job at putting in, where at the end of the movie she just says, stop playing with our lives, because like it's this weird thing where you just see girls die a bunch of ways, and that was fun. That was a whole lot of fun. But then at the end it turns out she was like in video games and stuff. And then, like, this weird old guy designed the game and made, like, a younger version of himself to cuck himself. It was a weird fucking movie, but it was fun, for the most part. And I think that's all the movies I've seen so far. I recorded this one earlier in the month than I have with some of the others, but it's actually less than a month, so it actually is a monthly movie recap. I'll see you next month, maybe. Maybe we'll actually get back to doing this monthly. Welcome to another monthly movie recap. This one's kind of monthly. I mean, it's technically November 1st when I'm recording this. It's like 4 a.m., but I meant to get it out sometime in October, but, I never got around to fucking recording it. I've seen a lot of movies since the last time. I have not taken notes and written them down this time like I normally do at the start of these, because I wanted to try and get this out quick. So if I miss anything, I guess I'll get them next recap. Movies I have seen. Let's just go what's at the top of my mind first. I saw this movie called Goodnight Mommy, which is a Austrian movie, and it's in German, because they speak German in Austria. It's a movie about these two kids, who, one of them, the mother doesn't seem to be able to see, and there's a reason for that it gets to in the end of the movie, that it kind of hints at the beginning, too, and it kind of becomes increasingly obvious. But then they start to think that their mom's not their real mom, and at first you're thinking, oh, the mom's bad, she's kind of abusive. You think. You don't really see any actual abuse, but you kind of get the implication. And then it's implied that she killed a cat, although I think the cat actually probably died of natural causes. Then later on, it's spoilers, the kids start torturing her. Now, granted, since we're in the spoiler territory at this point, I'm gonna avoid too many spoilers, but it's really graphic with the torture. Like, it's not like the most graphic thing I've ever seen. It doesn't compare to like Antichrist, but it's still pretty graphic, and it's pretty fucked up. And it started out with me thinking, oh, this mom's a bitch, and then by the end of it, I'm like, these kids need to be shot. It was a very interesting shift in the way I perceived it. But it was a very good movie. It's one Corbin and I watched. And speaking of movies Corbin and I have watched, I currently still have Netflix. We'll be canceling it on the 7th, I think, or something like that. But we watched Homunculus, based on the manga by want to say his name is like Yamamoto. The guy who wrote Ichi the Killer. His name escapes. I think it's something Yamamoto. But the movie Homunculus actually has a lot of drastic changes from the manga, from what I've been told. But nevertheless, it does still follow essentially the same plot to an extent. Where, this guy has a hole drilled in his head, and he starts to be able to perceive what are essentially people's inner demons, their traumas, like manifesting in weird ways. And then there's a lot of stuff with, is reality real and stuff like that. And, he's going around seeing these traumas and stuff and trying to come to the conclusion of it. And also his wife was killed, and he's like trying to figure that out. And then he thinks he meets his wife, and then that goes and has a bunch of twists and turns, like a twisty-turny thing. Yeah, pretty good movie. Definitely not Ichi the Killer, but it's a good movie, and it's definitely much more toned down. I would assume that the manga's probably more graphic. Because, to be fair, the Ichi the Killer movie was toned down, too. Although not as much as this one, I'm sure. Although, then again, I'm sure this manga's probably not as graphic as Ichi the Killer, because Ichi the Killer is pretty graphic. Yeah, Homunculus is pretty interesting. It's a Netflix original in the U.S., I think. I think the U.S. Netflix has the distribution rights. I'm not 100%. Other than that, another movie I have seen is, let's just talk about one I watched on Halloween, right? Which was The Unknown from 1927, which is a silent film about this like circus/freak show thing, and sort of this character who's got no arms, and he's our main character, played by Lon Chaney, who was most famous for The Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. As this movie progresses, we start to learn more and more about this character, and spoiler, but he is a wanted killer, and he actually does have arms. He's pretending not to have arms. He has 2 thumbs on one of his hands, and it gets to be this whole, like, love triangle, which initially you wouldn't think it would go there right away, because the chick doesn't like men, like, being all over her and stuff, and she likes this guy because he can't have his hands all over her because she doesn't think he has hands. He kills her father. And then, as that goes on, then the other guy who was in love with her to begin with, and she was rejecting for the whole movie, she eventually just accepts, which, granted, the guy who was pretending not to have arms told him to go and, like, pursue her, because he didn't think it would work for him, and he was trying to get, I don't know if he was just, like, kind of getting some sick kicks out of it or what, but, things go south real fast, she gets with the other guy, and then that causes him to want to get revenge, leading to the climax with this whole thing involving the guy. He had his arms cut off, and then the guy that she's currently in love with gets his arms torn off by horses, because he's doing this, like, cool trick, because he's, like, a strong man. And, like, the guy, our main character, played by Lon Chaney, disables the treadmills that the horses are on, so they actually pull his arms off, or presumably, you don't actually see them get ripped off, but I assume they got ripped off. Either that or this guy's such a Chad, he's so fucking muscular, he can fucking hold the horses back regardless. Let's see, other than that, I've also recently seen Poultrygeist, which is a trauma film. But as far as The Unknown, it's a pretty good silent film, so I don't mean to get sidetracked. But The Unknown was good, and it was a good recommendation from Chisu. Quite enjoyable, lots of fun twists. Anyway, Poultrygeist was really fun. It was a trauma movie. It was really fucking gross, had a lot of gross out humor, because of course it did. But it was really fun. It's about these, like, vegan protesters and, like, killer chickens and shit like that at this, like, fast food restaurant that's, like, disgusting and gross. Those are synonyms, so now I'm just being redundant, but whatever. But it's really good. It was a Lloyd Kaufman movie. Lloyd himself is in it as the main character from the future. There's a really gross scene with Joe Fleischaker in the bathroom taking a shit. And they, like, censor it, but they intentionally do a bad job, so it's still showing shit. It's gross. It's really gross. It's probably one of the grossest trauma movies I've seen. I mean, Toxic Avenger 4 has some pretty gross stuff. And I haven't seen every trauma movie by any stretch, because they can be pretty gross. But Poultrygeist was pretty fucking gross. But it was still fun. We also have been watching a lot of Full Moon stuff. We watched Head of the Family. I can't remember if we watched that before last time. I can't remember. But it's really good. That's probably my favorite Full Moon movie so far, Head of the Family. That's about this like weird like mutated family, effectively, that are like one of them is just like a big head, right? And then he sort of kind of can telepathically control like his siblings, and they're like trying to get him a normal body, so they're like kidnapping people and stuff. That one's really good. Honestly, out of Full Moon movies, that one's probably the best one I've seen. We also watched Subspecies, which is another Full Moon movie, which is about vampires. That one was pretty good too. I saw the original Dracula for the first time. Believe I had not seen the original. I shouldn't say the original. It's not really the original because there was technically a movie called The Death of Dracula that predates it, although that's a lost film. Also, Nosferatu was before that, and that's literally an adaptation of Dracula. It just they didn't have the rights to it, and Dracula wasn't public domain yet. And the book is public domain now, and Nosferatu, many versions actually do have the Dracula character names and places now. But we also did rewatch Nosferatu, but I've seen that before. But with this Dracula, Bela Lugosi, really good. I like how decrepit and like run down his castle is, and how there's like spiders and like armadillos and weird shit in his castle. I like that he not only turns into a bat, but also turns into a wolf. I like how charming he is. Like Dracula's great. I can like. There's a reason it's a horror classic. And obviously, I knew a lot about Dracula before that, but like actually seeing it was a whole different experience. Another Full Moon movie we watched was Ginger Dead Man. Ginger Dead Man 2. We didn't watch 1. It was fucking stupid, but it was funny. It was very enjoyable. And it recaps 1 at the beginning. Corbin really didn't want to watch 1 right away, so we watched 2 instead. So there you go. There's that. It's literally Child's Play, but with a gingerbread man, who in the first one was played by Gary Busey, and in the sequels is played by someone doing an impression of Gary Busey. There's a lot of questions raised in it, like who the fuck brought him back in the sequel? That's never revealed. Why the fuck is he targeting this movie set? Like, there's a lot of shit that just doesn't add up in Ginger Dead Man 2, and that's part of what makes it funny. We also saw The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which was another great movie. These Universal horror movies have been great that we've been watching. I think those are the only 2 we've watched so far, is Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon, but they're really good. We also saw that movie Hollow Man. I think it was last time, though, that I talked about it. Yeah, yeah, definitely it was. So we're not going to talk about that because I talked about it last time, but that's an adaptation of The Invisible Man. I also rewatched Hoodwinked. Which I have seen Hoodwinked before when it first came out, but it's been years, and I gotta say, that movie is fucking hilarious. The humor absolutely holds up and is on point. The goat is the best character in that movie. I think his name's like Japheth or something, and he sings when he talks, but like, you get the impression that he's just doing it to be a dick, because he claims that a witch put a spell on him and he has to sing everything he says, but there's at least twice where he literally just says stuff without singing, and Red even calls him out on it at one point, and he's like, Did I do? Like, just to cover it up real quick. But that movie's great, because it's, 3 different, or it's telling multiple perspectives of the Red Riding Hood story, which is this elaborate thing where someone's been stealing, like, snacks and, like, recipes, like, been stealing people's food cart stuff, like, because they want, there's a goodie bandit, essentially. Yeah, I remembered bits and pieces of it here. Like, I remembered the twist and who the villain actually was. But there's a lot of things I didn't remember. So rewatching it, it was great. And there were lines that, like, as I heard them, I'm like, or like as they were coming up, right? Like when they're in the cave and they're like picking up the dynamite, and he's like, oh, there's candles in here, and he's like, these are weird candles. What brand are they? And he's like, Dinamite. Like, I remembered that. I just didn't remember. Like, as it was coming up, it came back to me. You know what I mean? Another movie I watched was The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is a movie about a lady with Alzheimer's or dementia, and she gets possessed while having those mental cognitive problems. So it's a really interesting and pretty terrifying concept when you think about it. And there's a still frame from it that was used in a lot of old creepypasta videos as well. But it was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit as well. Like, it did hit a lot of the same plot beats as things like The Exorcist and stuff like that, but it definitely did feel like its own thing because of the dementia aspect. Another Full Moon movie we watched was Demonic Toys, which is exactly what you would expect. Lots of cool puppet work with these demonic toys attacking people. And then there's this like story of these brothers that are shown. One of them is actually the lady's son. The other one is the demon that's kind of showing itself as a child. Demonic Toys is really entertaining for a full moon movie as well. We also watched another full moon movie called Evil Bong that was pretty funny. It was like stoner humor, but horror. But also, obviously, full moon is still comedy as well. Also, it was more of a hookah than a bong, which is interesting, but whatever. Also, Ginger Dead Man was in it, and the demonic toys were in it too. Because the bong gives you these hallucinations as it steals your soul. Also, Tommy Chong was in it. I also showed Corbin Paprika. I've seen that before, but Corbin hadn't. I'm not really gonna go over that since I've seen it before. Did I review it? I might have reviewed it. I can't remember if I have, to be honest, because it's been a while since I first saw it. And it was definitely good to re-experience it. It's a movie from the creator of Perfect Blue that's like Inception, but anime, and before Inception was a thing. And then I'm sure I'm missing something, but like I said, I'm just going from memory here. Yeah, Corbin and I have been watching a lot of movies, so I've been able to do this for quite some time now. I just haven't just fucking hit record and done this. Probably not going to even edit this one. I rarely edit these all that much, if anything. They're very similar to Red Eye Raw in that regard, I guess. But there you go. That's your monthly movie recap. If there's anything I missed, I'll get it next time. We've been doing a lot of Red Eye theaters, so if I miss something, it'll probably be in those Red Eye theaters too. Because for instance, we did a vampire marathon, and I think Subspecies, Shiki, those were the things, right? And then we did Creature from the Black Lagoon after that. I don't know. Point is, we've done a lot of Red Eye theaters lately, so if I miss something, my bad. I'll get it next time. The second one I've done live because my internet is still down, which I know, counterintuitive, and also, it's not monthly. It was supposed to be at one point, right? And I was actually going to get this one out a month after the last, but what can I say? It's the kind of guy I am. Fucking late as hell as always. Time to look at this new monthly movie recap, and I'll figure out what episode number it is and update the stream title later. The last time, so there's been quite a few movies since last time. So we'll start off today talking about The Boy and the Heron. That's the newest Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli film. It's pretty good. I actually saw it in theaters, and I talked about it briefly in a Red Eye Raw at one point. It was my first time going to theaters in years, because I don't really go to theaters anymore all that much, because movies suck now. But when I went there, this lady, fell down, right in front of, she tripped over the fucking wet floor sign in the bathroom, and her, boyfriend just sat there and laughed, and it was really funny. And that stuck with me. That was a really fucking funny experience when seeing the movie. But the movie itself was pretty good. It's this kid trying to find, his mom, and following this, shape-shifting, heron into this weird, other universe. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but there's, these weird, canary things that are, are huge, soldier thing. It's weird. It's a Ghibli movie. It's fun. I enjoyed it. But I saw it subbed. There was obviously the option to see it subbed or dubbed in theaters. I saw it subbed. But in the dub, I know they had Robert Pattinson, I think, as the heron. My brother thought it was Willem Dafoe for some reason. I guess he's just oh, it's the guy from The Lighthouse, and just got the wrong one. But overall, I saw the sub, but it was good. Next up, we got Hellraiser 1 and 2. Those movies were both, first Hellraiser movie was pretty great. It's these fucking sadistic demons that are clearly, inspired by the God Hand from Berserk. And you, summon them, and then they just horribly kill you, because I guess they think that pain is pleasure, and they just brutally torture you to death. So really, there's not a good reason to summon them, the Cenobites, but most of the movie takes place at this house where this family is, dealing with the aftermath of the Cenobites. I'm going to turn off this light, because this glare is fucking awful. Anyway, the first movie was really entertaining, because, this guy had come back, and he had, no skin, but, he would feed off people, and that would make him regenerate. So then, the wife, she's married to his brother, the dead guy, but, they were, having an affair, and so she's trying to bring him back, by, sacrificing people to him so he can, regenerate. And so she keeps bringing people to him to feed on, and that was really cool. And then, later on, he ends up wearing, his brother's skin. It's a really cool fucking horror movie that has a really simple premise, and that's what made it work. But then Hellraiser 2 is fucking stupid. I fucking hate Hellraiser 2. Because Hellraiser 2, the Cenobites were really not all that freaky. A lot of weird shit just kind of happens, like they go into hell or something, and there's just all these weird imagery and all this crazy shit. And there's like this doctor character that becomes a Cenobite, and then the Cenobites are revealed to have been humans the whole time, and then they remember they used to be human, and then they turn good, like, immediately. When, in the first movie, and most of this movie, they were set up as, like, these evil, like, pleasure demons. But then they're just like, no, we're good now, like, at the end. And then they die in, like, a really anticlimactic way. It's not good. Hellraiser 2 fucking sucks. Genuinely hate that movie. Next up, we got Slumber Party Massacres 1 and 2. Slumber Party Massacre 1 is a fairly standard slasher. It's just a guy with a big power drill killing women at a fucking slumber party, as you would imagine. It's pretty simplistic, but it gets the job done. It's fine. It's short. It's not particularly gory or anything, but it's enjoyable enough. The second one, however, is radically different, where there was a young girl who showed up at the party. I think she was 12 at the time. And this is, like, I think 5 years later, so she's, like, 17 in the sequel or something like that. But she starts having nightmares about the driller killer, but the one she's dreaming about is more like Elvis. The one she's dreaming about is more like Elvis, and it's like got this Nightmare on Elm Street sort of motif where the dreams are like really affecting her, and she's starting to think that it's real. Then finally, the guy comes out of the dream at the end, and again, he's like Elvis, and he's got the drill on a guitar. Like, the one through line is the drill with the killer. That's the only connection, because the other one was just some guy. Whereas this one's this fucking nightmare guy that's dressed like fucking Elvis and comes out with a guitar, and he starts singing this big musical number where he's fucking drilling the girls while he's singing. I loved that. That was fucking great. That cemented the second one is way better, because, like, I remember for a lot of the second movie, I was like, yeah, this really isn't as entertaining. Like, they're just kind of trying to, like, knock off Nightmare on Elm Street. But then when he comes out and he does the musical number and the little dance, it's fucking great. At that point in the movie, I was hooked. I mean, granted, it's like the last, like, third of the movie, but it's fucking great. It absolutely makes up for the rest of, like, and the rest of it's interesting with the dream stuff. But, like, there wasn't really any kills for most of the movie, but they backload a lot of the kills. He kills a lot of people in the end while he's singing and dancing, and it's fucking great. So yeah, that was really enjoyable. The next movie we'll talk about is Never Hike in the Snow, which is the prequel to Never Hike Alone, which in turn is a Friday the 13th fan film, which has Tommy Jarvis from Part 6, the actor who played him, Tom Matthews, reprising his role in it. And he's very briefly in Never Hike Alone, but he's also in Never Hike in the Snow a little bit more prominently. He's still not the main character, but he is more prominent in that than he is in the other one. And something I do like about these movies is that Jason is like an apparition. He's like a ghost that attacks people, and that's really interesting. So Never Hike in the Snow was really good. It was only 30 minutes long, very short, but it also came with some bonus stuff like Disappear, and there was one other. There was a bunch of short films that were like in the same universe with the same Jason, and these ones don't acknowledge anything past Part 4 as canon, I think. But it's really interesting. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Never Hike in the Snow was really fun. Never Hike Alone itself was really fun. There's also a version of it called the Ghost Cut that combines Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone, Disappear, and then the other one, which escapes me at the moment for some reason. Yeah, overall, really good fan film. I quite enjoyed it. Ghost Jason's really cool. Next up, we got Monsternado, which is a shitty knockoff fucking monster movie that's a ripoff of Sharknado. And it's not good. It's not good at all. It's really bad. It's one of those. It's one of those generic. It's one of those generic knockoff movies. And again, it's trying to knock off Sharknado, which is obviously the better movie. But Monsternado, not good. And there's a bunch of contradictions in it. And like the monster, like there's this big ass cool crab monster at the beginning of the movie. You never see him again. He's in one scene. The rest of it, it's mostly like sharks. I think there's a crocodile. There's some giant shrimp. And the effects aren't like the worst in the world. They're actually kind of decent. There's a couple of moments where they're really bad, like where the giant megalodon sticks its head through. That looked really bad, but some of the special effects were all right. But overall, just watch Sharknado instead. Sharknado's just a better movie in every way. Um, the next movie we're going to talk about is Soylent Green, which is a movie I knew about for quite some time because, Soylent Green, it's people, it's Soylent Green is people, the twist. But that's all I knew about it prior. It's a dystopian future where society is collapsing and people are living in these old shitty rundown apartments just kind of piled on top of each other. But if you're rich, you can buy an apartment that comes with furniture, which is a woman who comes with the apartment, who just kind of, it literally comes with a slave. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's based. But no, the furniture girls are like a prominent thing in that movie. And the main character is like a cop, and he's like going to investigate it. Like, because one of the guys, there's this rich guy who owns an apartment who gets killed by the Soylent Company. A lot of the movie is his furniture girl is telling stuff to the main cop character about him, and like they sort of have a romance that builds up, which, I mean, literally starts from him just going in and telling her on the bed. Because, again, she's furniture. She can't say no. And she's like, I'll stay here in case the next tenant wants me. No, the movie was really good. I was genuinely surprised at how good of a movie it was. The twist is... And the way that they hide the twist, like what the old man found about Soylent Green, which everyone knows the twist, that it's people, but they do a pretty good job at not revealing it until the end. Like it's hinted, it's pretty obvious. It's you can infer it. I mean, granted, maybe I could just infer it because I knew from the start. The ending is when they finally reveal it. And I like that it leaves it ambiguous as to whether or not his boss is actually going to reveal it to the people, because he tells them, "You gotta tell people, you gotta tell them." And he's like, "I will," but is his boss really going to tell people? Because his boss was making shady deals with this governor or senator that has ties to Soylent. So it was really interesting. It was a good dystopian movie. I quite enjoyed it. Next up, we'll talk about Return of the Living Dead. This is kind of sort of a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, which I haven't actually seen. But in this universe, the Night of the Living Dead movie is based on a true story within that universe, but obviously the events are different. And this is it's a comedic movie. It's very over the top and cheesy. The zombies can talk. They're basically fully sentient. They're just brains, live brains, and they're talking about how they need to eat brains to stop the pain. And it's really cheesy and over the top, and it's very intentionally like I said, it's a comedy. It's very fun. It's a fun zombie movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I bought that while I was on vacation, and I watched it there, and I quite liked it. It's very good. There's sequels that I've heard are not so good. And the guy who played Tommy Jarvis in Part 6 and also in the Never Hike series is in that movie too. So that was interesting. Also, the punks in this movie are the most fucking 80s thing I've ever seen in a movie, and it was great. There's this fucking chick who looks like one of the tattooed teenagers from Dimension X from fucking Ninja Turtles who fucking strips completely nude and does this fucking dance. That was again, very, very 80s movie. And like I said, it was a lot of fun. And to end off with, we'll talk about something that sucked. A movie that was fucking awful. And that's the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Yes, I saw this because Trevor was watching it while we were in the motorhome, and so I watched it. Now, I will admit, after a while, I started tuning out and kind of drifting off. But I'll tell you this, a third of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, they're literally just palling around with the animatronics, being all friendly with them, because the animatronics see the little girl and they're like, "Oh, that's a kid. We're kids. We're not going to kill kids. See, we're good." And it's what? And then they introduce these fucking... And so they won't kill the main character either because they see that he's the little girl's brother. They're like, "Oh, you're friends with this little girl, so we won't kill you either." And then fucking, there's these burglars that are introduced to, break in to the fucking pizzeria, and they're the only ones who actually get killed in the movie. Also, Matthew Lillard plays the villain, William Afton. So fucking Shaggy is the villain in this fucking movie. The fact that the animatronics were all friendly with people and only kill the fucking burglars, and all of the kills are basically off screen. I think there's one or two that aren't. I think just one. And the movie also starts with this saw trap fucking animatronic going down on a guy. I'm like, what the fuck is this, Saw? Like, legitimately the only, like, I started out thinking, maybe this won't be the worst thing in the, and then I watched it and I'm like, I already hated the source material, but I feel like if I liked it, I'd be fucking insulted with how fucking the scary animatronics aren't evil or acting scary or anything at all. Like, they don't even, like, get manipulated by fucking Shaggy until, like, the end of the movie. But yeah, it was really bad. Like, there's one scene that I really liked when he just beats the hell out of this guy because he thinks he's kidnapping a girl, which he had no fucking reason to think that, so it's really funny that just out of nowhere he just starts beating the shit out of a guy. That was enjoyable. But no, that movie fucking sucked. Five Nights at Freddy's movie, way worse than I thought it would be, and I already didn't have high expectations. Genuinely bad movie. The effects were okay. It's funny because I think they were practical, but they looked like CGI. It was weird. Maybe they were enhanced with CGI or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, it wasn't good. I knew about the Matt Pat cameo because I'd seen it before. But yeah, I hated it. Granted, like I said, I already didn't like Five Nights at Freddy's, but I think it's crazy that Five Nights at Freddy's fans like that movie. Watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to the next monthly movie recap. This one's only 2 months out, so it's not too bad. It's only a month late. But the first movie we're going to talk about today will be Mean Creek. Now, this is a movie that I watched with my friend Rem, also known as the Pitcher from Sergeant Friends. And it has Josh Peck in it as an annoying yet sympathetic little bastard. And it's sort of a coming-of-age, sort of revenge, tragedy movie, where Josh Peck's character bullies this character who's played by Rory Culkin, who then tells his brother about it, and then they come up with this elaborate plan with his brother and his brother's friends to go and get revenge on him by taking him out to this river. And spoilers coming up, just so you know. They take him out, and the plan was to strip him down and throw him in the river. Some of them start getting cold feet on it because he seems mostly nice. They do a pretty good job in this movie at making Josh's character both incredibly annoying and hateable, but also sympathetic, and you feel bad for him, and it's also really sad. Some of them change their minds, and then they play this truth or dare game on the boat. And then Josh's character, whose name was George, I'm pretty sure, crosses a bunch of lines by, like, pushing a bunch of buttons and stuff. And so then one of them tells him, hey, we were going to throw you in the river. And then Josh's character snaps and crosses a line again, this time saying, oh, your daddy splattered his brains all over the wall. All over the wall. It's this whole big thing. And then he's trying to throw him in, and then, like, they're fighting over it, and the older brother of Rory Culkin's character accidentally knocks him in the river. And then they watch him back there struggling. He can't swim. He's drowning. And then he smacks himself in the face with his video camera as he's trying not to drown. Because he carries a video camera. That was a big thing with the characters, that he filmed everything. He dies. He fucking dies. And that's a whole big thing, obviously, because then the characters, they bury the body. They're trying to determine what they should do about this. And then eventually they decide they're going to tell the truth. And this guy, Marty, who's like the oldest one, decides he's going to flee. So he robs a liquor store and gets the hell out of there. It was a really good movie. Very simple, very indie. And it had Josh Peck and Rory Culkin in it. And it was sad. They did a really good job at making you both hate Josh's character, George, and also feel really bad for him. He clearly also had, like, some form of autism or anything. That's never explicitly said, but it's pretty fucking obvious with the way that the character is portrayed. But overall, really good movie. The next movie we'll talk about is Watchers, which I saw in theaters. I think it's The Watchers. And it was made by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Now, why did I see it in theaters? As you know, I don't really go to theaters anymore. Well, I saw it in theaters because a relative of mine's birthday was coming up, and we went to see it for that. It was pretty dull, pretty generic. It had some interesting concepts, but it's based on, like, fairy folklore, because there's, like changeling type things, which are what the Watchers are, and they can't leave this, like, forest, and then this chick, like, gets stuck in the forest, and they have to, like, do everything that these Watchers want, and they perform for them in this, like, hut that has, like, a glass screen. Then they find out there was a scientist who was studying them. The scientist also was with one of them, and I think had a kid with one of them. I don't even fucking remember. Point is, that was a whole big thing. Scientist died, and a bunch of the people died when they went into this forest, but, a few of them get out, And then one of the changelings actually gets out because you find out the old lady who's been telling them all the rules and stuff was one of the changeling things, one of the Watcher-type creatures. I think that was kind of obvious, but it's what turned out to be true. Overall, not honestly all that great. It was okay at best. Like it was like maybe like a 5 out of 10, if that. Next up, we have Double Down, the third Neil Breen movie I've seen. Neil Breen's first movie overall. Pretty fun. It has standard Breen stuff. It does have the iconic, "I'm an American, I love my country," that speech. It has Neil Breen being like kind of a Gary Stu who's like really good at everything. They portray him to have like sort of a double life, I think, where he's supposed to be kind of bad because he's like gonna take down the whole grid of Vegas and like spread anthrax, which by the way, he spread some of the anthrax and they just kind of pretend that didn't happen. Again, it's Neil Breen. If you like Neil Breen, you know what you're going into. It's not good, it's fucking stupid, and that's why you watch it. That's why it's great. It seems, in some regards, more competently put together than some of his later films, like Fateful Findings, or especially Twisted Pair. Twisted Pair is a fucking clusterfuck of all sorts of crazy shit. I would say that this one wasn't as fun as those other two, either. It definitely gets zany and wacky and has stupid Neil Breen shenanigans throughout it. But it's not my favorite Neil Breen movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. Again, if you like Neil Breen, check it out. Although, good luck finding it, because it's a pain in the ass to find. Anyway, decent enough, so bad it's good experience. I enjoyed it for what it was. Next up, we got Meet the Feebles, which is a movie made by Peter Jackson, way before he did Lord of the Rings or King Kong. And it's basically taking the idea of what if the Muppet Show was adult, right? Like, what if behind the scenes there was all this shit going on, like drug use, sex, crime, murder, all sorts of crazy shit, right? And it's really fun. It's not a movie that really follows one centralized plot. It has sort of an ensemble cast. It's just a bunch of, like, grotesque and adult themes with these Muppet-type characters. It's nowhere near as gross as I thought it would be. It does have a good amount of gross out in it, but I was expecting far grosser. And then the movie at the ending has a shootout scene where this hippo character, who's been ridiculed the whole time and like abused and used by this manager who's just using her for sex, she just snaps and just goes on a fucking killing spree. Like she takes out a lot of people that weren't the director. She just fucking shoots the place up. A few characters survive and like they talk her out of it. But it doesn't really follow a 3-act structure. It's kind of all over the place. It's just a bunch of little things that kind of happen. But it's a lot of fun. It's definitely the best, Muppets but adult type movie I've seen. The only other one I can really think of is Happy Time Murders. If you're expanding to TV shows, there's things like Crank Yankers, and if you expand to like internet stuff, there's stuff like SML. But, as far as actual movies, this has probably been the one I've enjoyed the most. Again, I'm comparing it mostly to Happy Time Murders, which sucked ass. But this movie was a lot of fun. And nowhere near as gross as I thought it would be, which was a plus, because I'm not the biggest fan of gross out. Alright, next up we have Taxi Driver. Now, this is the third Martin Scorsese movie I've seen. The other two being The Departed and The Last Temptation of Christ, which I'm pretty sure I've talked about both of those on Movie Recap before. With Taxi Driver, it stars Robert De Niro as a taxi driver who's a veteran who just got back from the war and isn't really that in touch with how society and stuff works now. He gets with this chick, takes her to a porno theater on a date, and she leaves him, even though she explicitly said, "No, this is a dirty movie, I don't want to see this." And he's like, no, it'll be fine, you'll love it. And then she leaves, and he's like, "This woman who said that she didn't want to see a dirty movie got mad when I showed her a dirty movie? What is this?" Like, it's the self-awareness was bizarre with that. But then there's a scene where he tries to assassinate this guy who she was campaigning for politically. And not because of his policies or anything, because this guy, we actually never learn anything about this guy's policies, but there's a scene where he goes and tries to take him out, simply out of spite for the chick leaving him, it seems like. There's also a scene where he shoots a robber who's trying to rob this convenience store that he goes to. He spends a lot of this movie going to the porno theater to just hang out and watch porno. He also, works out and builds this elaborate weapon thing, like that's what he was going to go take that guy out with. But then he decides to use it in another way towards the end of the movie, which is easily the best scene of the movie. because there's this girl who's like 12. I think they say she's 12 and a half. She's played by Jodie Foster, who's been forced into prostitution. And he sees that, and he decides he's going to get her out of there, because she tried to get help from him by going to his cab one night. And finally he's like, I'm going to save her. And so then he snaps, and he kills all of the pimps and pedophiles that are there trying to fuck her, and just fucking goes on this bloody fucking massacre in the hotel that they're keeping her at. He gets shot to hell but survives, and she gets taken back to her parents, and he's viewed as a hero by the town. Now, for some reason, a lot of people view this character as a villain. I would say he's absolutely a hero. The scene where he tries to take out that one guy definitely isn't heroic, but the scene itself feels kind of out of place compared to some other things. At the very least, the character's an anti-hero, because he did save that girl. And he took out a bunch of really bad people doing it. So, at the very least, he's an anti-hero. I really liked this movie. It was really good. That last scene is one of the best endings to a movie I've seen. That said, it's not my favorite Scorsese movie so far. I still preferred The Departed, although I think I liked this one more than Last Temptation of Christ. All the Scorsese movies I've seen have been great, but this one, probably second place. But maybe after a few watches, we'll see. Also, interestingly, this movie inspired the guy who shot Reagan and tried to take him out, because of the scene where the main character tries to take out that other politician. He saw that, and then this guy was obsessed with Jodie Foster in this movie, so he thought that if he reenacted it from the movie, it would impress the then child Jodie Foster that he replicated something from her movie. It was this weird nut. It's just an interesting fact that the guy who tried to kill Reagan was obsessed with Jodie Foster from this movie, and then tried to take him out because of it to try and impress her. It's really fucking weird. Next movie we're going to be talking about, and the last one of this movie recap, is Buffalo 66. Now, this is a really interesting movie. It's very unique. It's about a guy getting out of prison, and then kidnapping a girl to pretend to be his wife while talking to his parents. Now, his parents don't really give a shit about him. His mom keeps forgetting his name. His dad seems completely disinterested. He's just using this chick as to show that he's normal. And the chick likes it. She absolutely likes it. She's fucking there's multiple opportunities where she could have left. And spoiler, they end up together at the end of the movie, and she clearly likes him because there's multiple times where she wants to stay with him. Also, I get the implication that the guy might have been raped in prison or molested as a kid, because he really doesn't like being touched. He doesn't want her to touch him or anything like that, and he's really, really paranoid about that. And she's played by Christina Ricci. The movie itself is very you can see kind of how unhinged the character is. He wants to take out this guy that he views as fucking him over when it came to by fucking up a football game. He's a former player for the Buffalo Bills, I believe. He wants to take. It's very similar to Ray Finkel's motivation in Ace Ventura. Honestly, I almost wonder if Ace Ventura, I almost wonder if one of them inspired the other. They both came out in the 90s. In fact, I think Ace Ventura came out first. Let's see. Yeah, Ace Ventura came out 4 years before, looks like. I don't think there's any actual inspiration there. It would be interesting if there was. But it is very similar to Ray Finkel's motivation in Ace Ventura 1. But yeah, he's about to go, and there's a scene where you see him kill all the people in the strip club. He kills the guy and gets his revenge and then kills himself. That's a dream, or a hallucination rather. He envisions that, but then he sees that the guy's kind of just a normal guy and decides not to kill him. And then he goes back and he ends up together with the chick. Also, he was using her he gave her a name of this girl that he had a crush on in high school, who barely even knows he exists. But yeah, it's overall a good movie. It's very unique. It's the first Vincent Gallo movie I've seen. And he also, he directed it and also plays the main character. Yeah, overall, really good movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So yeah, that's it for this week, this month's monthly movie recap. And I'm going to do a compilation of the episodes I have so far as the first year, because we've done 12 months, right? Even though they haven't exactly been back to back. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. Have a good one. Toodles.
Sure. You take forever to say nothing.
Subscribe, defeat it to Red Eye.